This episode of That's What G Said podcast is brought to you by Cindy Carava, needs full service realtor, Cindy Carava, and CeraCandles.com. All natural candles, locally produced. Make sure to check out CeraCandles.com and use the promo code GINO for 10% off your. On this episode, we're going to go through some quick NFL wildcard round thoughts. Then we have a interview with the CEO of Cera Candles, Tyler Harringer. He's a local LA guy. I've known Tyler my whole life. We talk LA sports, we talk NFL playoffs, and then we break down Cera Candles and how he started that company. Then we have a 90-minute interview with Andrew Champagne where we go over Andrew's 50-point plan to fix horse racing. He wrote an article recently, and it's got a little bit of buzz. It was very well done, and he put a lot of time into it. So we spent a lot of time going through all of the points and the fixes that Andrew has for horse racing. We'll close things out with some horse racing plays. We have Thursday, January 9th, Gulfstream Park plays. Friday, January 10th, plays from Sam Houston. So kick back and enjoy this episode of That's What G.
So you want your daily dose of sports and pop culture? Well, I know a guy named G who gives it to you good. That's what G said. From Game of Thrones and Stranger Things to DDTs and chicken wings and banking on a long shot to close. Will the Lakers bounce back? Did USC upset them? Will the Dodgers have on all who oppose? It's gotta be our year. It's gotta be our year. It's gotta be our fucking year. That's what G said.
Hello, everybody. Happy hump day to you. Wednesday, January the 8th. And we are recording another episode of That's What G Said podcast for you. NFL playoff week. Divisional round coming up now. Let's talk a little bit about what happened in the wild card round last week. We had 4 games, and generally the wild card round games aren't that good, right? There's usually a couple teams that get in to the playoffs that maybe they were good early in the season, they kind of backed in late, maybe they weren't very deserving of a playoff spot, but we actually had 4 really good games. In game 1 on Saturday afternoon, it was Bills-Texans, and if you back the Bills, like I did, or anyone that backed the Bills, I mean, you had to be very confident when the score was 16-0. But what we saw was a lot of the reasons why you would have bet against the Bills, or a lot of the reasons why you would have leaned towards the Texans in a game like this because of the uncertainty of Josh Allen, that's basically exactly what happened in here. Josh Allen ends up going 24 of 46 for 264 yards. He actually had 9 carries for 92 yards also. So when you just look at the numbers on paper, they're not terrible. But it was what happened late in the game where it seemed like Josh Allen just kind of had a mental lapse with some of his throws, with trying to pitch to a tight end when he was down the field. He just took some really bad sacks repeatedly. It was unfortunate because the Bills were the better team most of that game. But what ends up happening when you have a player like Watson, like Deshaun Watson, very much like Russell Wilson, the Texans or the Seahawks, they can look ugly for most of the game, and then what you need is you just need your very talented quarterback to make a couple plays for you here and there, and that's exactly what happened. Watson, these are some Pro Football Focus numbers. Watson threw a catchable pass on 84% of his targets, and he made the game-winning scramble completion. He went downfield when it was needed. He went 8 of 10 on throws, 10-plus yards in the second half and in overtime. He actually had a ton of time to throw, too. Buffalo was really good in coverage, but Watson ended up, it was hurting him early on because he took a ton of sacks. He got sacked 7 times, which was a season high, because he had so much time to throw. He was looking around, but the coverage was great. He just couldn't find anyone. And it was the second half when Allen really just hurt the Bills quite a bit. He went 3 of 10, 0 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays in the second half, and in overtime, and on throws of 10-plus yards downfield. Let me go through that one more time. So on throws of 10-plus yards downfield, he was 3 of 10, 0 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays, and that was in the second half. So we just saw a different Josh Allen in half 1 than we did in half 2, and we saw a different DeAndre Hopkins who came alive for Houston. Caught all 4 of his targets for 70 yards, and this was when he was against Tre'Davious White in the second half. So second half, Hopkins against Tre'Davious White, all 4 targets, 70 yards, Hopkins won the battle there, including a 41-yard catch over the top of White, and that set up the Texans' game-tying score in the fourth quarter. So, unfortunate if you're a Bills fan, but a good game back and forth. And now an interesting game as Houston goes over to Kansas City, a team that they already played this year. They already beat in Kansas City. I like Houston a lot more in a spot like this when they're not supposed to win, when they're going on the road, when they're playing against a team that may be a little better than them, than when they're favored and when they're supposed to win a game. It seems like they just don't come out and play very well against teams that are like of their caliber or are not like the top tier teams. It's like they have to have it playing against a top tier team to get up. We'll see if they can get up against the Kansas City Chiefs coming up this weekend. Game 2, we saw two. You'd have to think of them as really big upsets this weekend. Now, I like the Titans in this game, just as far as the point spread was concerned, and we're talking Titans-Patriots, and the Titans win 20-13 in that game. But anytime the Patriots are not in the divisional round of the playoffs, that has to be seen as an upset. We had the Titans, taking down the Patriots, and we had the Vikings taking down the Saints, two teams that many people, especially the Saints, were a team that a lot of people felt like shouldn't be playing this weekend. The Patriots, they did it to themselves, right? All they had to do was beat Miami last week, and they're not playing in this wild card round. They have the bye. They're playing in the divisional round. They're playing in it with a home game. But unfortunately, they laid an egg against Miami. And, if you hold a team to 20 points, you feel like you should be able to score. And even it's less than 20 because some of that was late garbage. But it was a big goal line stop in the second quarter for the Titans. And that really stamped the Titans as a strong defense. I think it's a strong defense, and as a team that probably the Patriots were looking at thinking, I think you could see it in Belichick's head. He was coaching a different game, and he's coached a different game this year with this Patriots team. He hasn't been quite as aggressive. I just don't think he believed in his offense a whole heck of a lot. So the Patriots did not score a point in the second half at home. And Henry had 34 carries for 182 yards. They just couldn't stop him. There was nothing that was really surprising about this game when you broke it down and analyzed. The only thing that was surprising was the result, and that a 5-point favorite loses the game straight up. A 5-point favorite, the Patriots in Foxborough at home, where they just very rarely lose. They get no help from their wide receivers. Their receivers caught just 7 of 19 targets, including 2 drop passes, and it just showed you that this team didn't have the weapons. When you look at who caught passes for the Patriots, it's James White, who has 5 catches. It's a few from Edelman, but it's James White with 5. It's Ben Watson with 3. It's Rex Burkhead with 3. Sony Michel with a couple more. Now the question, where do we see Tom Brady next? Is he going to be playing for the Patriots next year? Is he going to be playing for who knows? Tannehill wasn't really even that good either. He had a couple turnover-worthy plays, interception, dropped fumble, but he made the plays when he needed to. Couple big third downs. You look at the numbers in this game. A.J. Brown was like non-existent. It was really an ugly game back and forth, and it was the type of game the Patriots really wanted. The problem was they just couldn't stop Derrick Henry on the ground. They couldn't make a big play when they needed to. Titans had 201 yards on 40 carries. Defensive backfield played really well. Adoree Jackson was back. He helped out a little bit. Now we'll see what's going to be next for the Patriots. Vikings-Saints game, let's just be honest. The Vikings kicked the crap out of the Saints in this game. They really did. I think it even looks closer than it was because, they went to overtime, and the Vikings ended up winning overtime. Nobody's talking about, was it an offensive pass interference when they scored? Who cares? They really beat up the Saints in this game. And if it wasn't for some very conservative play calling late when they had opportunities, the game started out with Thielen fumbling the ball. Thielen had a brutal start to this game. He fumbled the ball on the opening drive. He was flagged for a holding penalty that erased a first down. He had a key drop in the first half, but then he made the huge catch over Patrick Robinson in overtime that brought him down, inside the 5, and they were able to score. That was coming into the game. How much were they going to get out of Thielen? How much were they going to get out of Cook? Would they get enough out of those two skill position players to be able to go up and down with New Orleans? You know what? New Orleans just played poor. Drew Brees played really poor, turned the ball over, interception, fumble. Vikings really slowed down Michael Thomas. He had 7 catches for 70 yards, but he only had 8 targets. The only player who really played well for New Orleans was Taysom Hill, who had 125 of the Saints' 324 yards and one of their 2 touchdowns on offense. I mean, the Saints were even gifted with the fumble early on that helped set up a score for them. They just didn't look like the Saints at all, and this was the one team that I was the most wrong on, because had they won, I probably would have continued to ride the Saints all the way to the Super Bowl. I genuinely thought they were right there with Baltimore as one of the most well-rounded teams and best teams in football. I kind of had New Orleans and Baltimore slightly above San Francisco, just because I've seen it a little bit more from New Orleans in the playoffs. I'm still a little concerned, not concerned, but until you see a quarterback like Jimmy G in a playoff game do it, I want to see him do it. Although Jimmy G has made big throws and big plays all throughout the year. I don't know when in a playoff big moment is, but something we saw with Josh Allen. This just was not a good effort from New Orleans, plain and simple. And the Vikings now, with some healthy skill players, they go on the road, they play San Francisco, and they've got a little momentum right now. This could be a matchup, not the best matchup for San Francisco, because the Vikings have a good defense. They can kind of slow them down a little bit too. I think both teams will try to run the ball and see which of the quarterbacks can make a big play or two when needed. And then the game that was a little bit of a bummer, unfortunately, was the Seattle-Philly game, because Carson Wentz got knocked out of the game really early on, and we knew from then the game was really over. Josh McCown did a very admirable job trying to make anything happen, but unfortunately he was sacked 6 times against a defense that's really not good at generating pressure, and he just couldn't do enough. It would be different if it was McNown with the regular Eagles skill players. If you told me that Josh McCown was throwing to Alshon Jeffrey and Aguilar and Ertz, like a healthy Ertz, I would say they have a shot. But when now you're missing Wentz, you're missing your backs, you're missing your number 1 receivers, they really just had no shot. And they still tried. They still battled. They ended up only losing 17-9. But it's just the kind of game that you get from Seattle. This is the game that Seattle's going to play everybody close. Now they got to go on the road and play at Lambeau. See if they can keep that game close. See if they can get a little healthier. But this was kind of a coming out party for DK Metcalf, who had 7 receptions for 160 yards and a touchdown. Okay, let's get on to a couple interviews that we have. First, we'll have another episode on And That's What G Said in just a few days, where we talk about all the weekend stuff. We'll go over the football games for the weekend, and we'll break down some weekend races. But right now, we're going to talk with the CEO of Cera Candles, Tyler Harringer. Tyler is a big sports fan. He likes to play the races. And so we talk all about LA sports. We talk about the NFL playoffs. And then we get into Cera Candles and how he started Cera Candle Company. So sit back and enjoy this interview with Tyler Harringer. I'm very happy to bring on our next guest, one of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast, from Cera Candles, and a good friend of mine. I'm going to bring on Tyler Harringer. Well, first of all, you're the boss and the head honcho. What title do you go by for Cera Candles? Are you the CEO, or what are you?
Yeah, I guess you can call me whatever you want. A CEO, the janitor,
Head honcho, chief.
Yeah. All of the above, man.
So Tyler, let's see. We have known each other for coming up on 30 years, I'd say. Because
virtually our entire lives.
Yeah, because our family, the way it was, we were 1 year apart from each other. Your older sister was a year above me, and then you were a year below me, and then my sister was a year younger than you, and then your brother was a year younger than her. I think so. We were every other year all the way down. So we went to grade school together, played sports together, grew up basically, kindergarten through 8th grade. I think your dad made my mom some delicious cakes sometimes that she loved.
That's true. Yeah.
So what sports are you into now? I know we talk about some gambling. We played fantasy football this year in a league. I think you've always been a really big Kings fan too, right?
Yeah. Big big Kings fan. Played hockey virtually my entire life, so it's a lower on the popularity scale of the four major sports. I guess it might even be getting passed soon here by soccer. But yeah, big hockey fan, big Kings fan, big Dodger fan, big Laker fan. Mostly the LA teams. Gotten on board with the Rams as they've kind of come back here to LA. So
this was going to ask. So football-wise, too, that's what we've kind of had. We had a void for most of our lives with like a pro football team. For me, it was kind of like being such a big USC fan that kind of filled a lot of the void. But I've done the same thing with the Rams, too. I had no reason to like hate on them. When they came back, I was ready to kind of embrace another LA team and a football team, too. So, yeah, I mean, it's we've been in a pretty good era, even though it's a little down for the Kings right now. Like they had a couple really nice runs in the last, decade or so. So we can't be too down on the ups and downs because they had a pretty good run. Probably going to be down for a little while now.
Yeah, I mean it's you get 2 cups there in a matter of 3 seasons when you hadn't won one ever in your entire history, and there's going to be some that's the salary cap way of sports. You're going to be good for a while, then you got to pay your players, and you'll kind of take a step back. That's where they are right now, but they're still competitive, still fun to watch. Got to support your teams and understand that's. You can't be good every year. Even we've seen that with the Patriots now. You can't win forever.
Yeah, and we can't really complain too much about the Dodgers. Obviously, we want to win a World Series. We want to see one, and we're not babies and infants, but we can't really complain when we're in it every year and we have a good team. And we feel like every single year we're like making slight improvements. We're kind of finding hidden gems, and I do like I have faith in them that we're going to win one of these years.
Yeah, I think, obviously there's the itch to just get over the hump and get there. And the fan in you and almost the human in you really wants to see Kershaw be a prominent player and winning one. But other than that, I have complete faith in the front office seems like they're kind of ahead of the curve on everything. And it's hard, they're there every single year. And there's an element of luck that needs to kind of go your way, and everything kind of needs to fall into place. The Nationals were the worst team in baseball, kind of found their footing, and then everything kind of went their way in the playoffs, and they found their way to a title. So it's hard to stay up top like that, but there is an element of luck, and things have to fall your way to win. And the Dodgers will get there. I don't doubt it too much, but it is frustrating though every year to like, man, and then every year that they don't win, it's is it whose fault is it? Is it Kershaw just not good anymore? And it's like, well, come on, the guy's been one of the best pitchers for a decade, so you want to see him win one, and they're good. So
you don't want to make too like rash of a decision and like too drastic of a change when your team is 3 years in a row losing to the World Series champ, like barely, very competitively in like a, Game 7 of the World Series. And then, we got beat up a little by Boston, but things just all really went well for them this year. And then, like you said, you catch a Washington team that was not good in the first, third half of the season, and they got a little healthy. Things started to click for them, and they catch the Dodgers. I still think it's hard to go back and we could have, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But, going into the playoffs, like that was the team that I was the most scared of, because with their pitching, especially how they could match up with you in a short series, I feel like if you were able to draw a series out with them, which, that was probably your best chance to get them. And so in a 5-gamer, I think we were in a little trouble with them as a Dodger fan.
Yep. No, I totally agree with you there with that. The way they stacked up kind of 1, 2, 3, and the way they were kind of not shy about using Corbin and using Strasburg out of turn and using him out of the bullpen. And I think maybe the ghosts of the past may have gotten to Roberts a little bit. He wanted to kind of give Kershaw his redemption, and it's easy to, like you said, it's easy to look back and nitpick, but maybe he only uses Kershaw for that one batter and then goes to the bullpen instead of starting Kershaw in the inning. But you can play that game all day. So
and we will. Yeah,
exactly.
We'll do it until which is crazy because we're recording this on the evening of January the 6th. Man, we're not far away from pitchers and catchers reporting. It's pretty crazy how quick it turns over, especially like towards the the end of baseball, because there's so many things going on. Like baseball ends and you're like right in the middle of football. You're right in the middle of college football. Basketball starts. Hockey has just started. And so you like everything's going on, and you kind of, there's like a few months that fly by, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, baseball rumors again. We're hearing about which big trade the Dodgers might make soon. So, and then we move over to the Lakers. We got to be really happy the way things have gone this year. I mean, even with the trade of Anthony Davis, I think people were still a little unsure of how the rest of the team would fill in around LeBron and AD. And This start has been unbelievable. They kind of take everybody's best shot too. It's always been that way. The teams that aren't very good, they come in, they play the Lakers really, really tough. They get up to play the Lakers, but it's been fun night in and night out. I think my son, Milo, had like a 10 or 11 game winning streak to start his life. That was pretty great.
I was following that along on Twitter. Yeah, Milo was. I was like thinking for a second, maybe he may never see a loss. I mean, the AD thing has worked out probably even better than anybody could have imagined. LeBron looks kind of revitalized, rejuvenated after last year. And yeah, like you said, the Lakers are going to come in every single game. And it seems even the last few games, again, that's another thing too, where, the Lakers have been so great and they're supposed to be great that you can nitpick them, and people do. But even when they're up by 30 points on a team, you can say, well, they should close people out. But these teams want to play the Lakers, and even the individual players, they, hey, if I want to put up a 50 spot on the Lakers. So they might even get a little selfish and just start shooting. And, so you're going to get everything against the Lakers, and they're going to, and, everyone's got their own strategy, but the Lakers aren't doing any rest days. Everyone's playing every game if they're healthy. And so, it's a long season, and I'm sure,
As a fan, I like that, honestly, especially because not many of these groups, like if you were the Warriors from last year or 2 years ago, or if you were, a group like the Spurs used to when they had won, that has already been there, that has already done that has been, that knows what it takes as a group to win. I'm okay with you taking some games off here and there, sitting, because what your ultimate goal is. But I think for all these teams, Lakers, Clippers, everyone included here, there's no dominant favorite this year. There's no team like it's been the last few years. So I think for everyone, getting, home court throughout, getting a top seed, having to set yourself up in kind of the easiest way through the playoffs, that's huge, because these matchups are key. Like the Lakers and the Clippers would be a battle of a series. The Clippers don't seem to match up well with the Rockets. And it would all be like the matchup. So I'm happy as a fan, because we saw a lot of Laker losses over the last 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. So every time we go out there and we win a game that I feel like we would have lost last year or 2 years ago, I'm content with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's nice to see them competitive again. And like you said, it's nice to see them playing everybody and just trying to figure out what pieces work together. I know that they're looking to improve their second unit a little bit, and that's going to come with time. I think at one point in the offseason, the Lakers technically had like 2 players on their roster or something like that. So
like
it's
LeBron and Kuzma.
Like none of these guys have played together. You got to give people they, although they're professionals and they're the best in their field, they still got to learn how to play together, and they still got to, help on defense and stuff like that. So it's nice to see it's working out so well early on, and I'm sure they're going to only get it better here as the season goes on.
So let's before we get into to start talking Cera Candles real quick, I was trying to go through this the other day. We would call each other Tylerina and Gina-Rina for years. How did that even start? I don't even remember. I was thinking back about that too, and I don't even remember.
We got to. I was trying to
somebody called me.
I will come up with it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We got to work on it. I'll ask my family around too, because I was laughing. I was like, I got to bring this up, but I don't know why it would go, and we would go back and forth. Tylerina, Gina-Rina, how's it going? Back and forth. But
that was back in like the 7th, 8th grade. I remember I was running for like student council in 8th grade, and I was in 7th grade going into 8th, and you were like my campaign manager. That was we were walking around the school playing Eye of the Tiger.
That's what it's like. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was great.
The glory days.
Yeah, and actually you recently, because when I was working on TVG, sometimes I would get messages from you too. You started getting into playing the races a little bit.
Yeah. I'd linked up with a kind of a buddy or two that I'd never really, I've always, living where we live less than 5-10 minutes from the track. And I'm like, man, and I would hear some family members from out of town or friends from out of town in college, like, man, you live that close to the races and you've never, you're never really gone. And I was like, I've just never really learned. And I've always wanted to. I'm a numbers guy. I'm an accountant by trade. And so I was like, I gotta get into this, and I love sports and I love gambling. And I'm like, there's, and then I started, slowly getting into it and looking at the numbers behind it. But yeah, so I was a little late to the game, I guess, and that I've really only been doing it kind of seriously. And even then I'm not nearly as good as, the top handicappers, obviously, but I've been probably only doing it seriously for about 3-4 years. And I wish, man, I'd started it earlier, but yeah.
That's
and
cool,
so I always, and I kind of knew, I knew you. And so I would kind of connect with other people on Twitter, I start following kind of like-minded horse players on Twitter. And then, occasionally we'd exchange messages on big racing days or something like that. And I'd kind of throw your name out there and say, oh yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And I know you. And they're like, oh yeah, Gino. And so then I would just, that's kind of how I got into it was, I guess, indirectly via you, but
good thing you talked to the right people. I was gonna say, if you talked to one of those wrong people, they would have responded the opposite way.
That Gino guy, I don't know about that Gino guy. Yeah.
I don't know. You put up with this guy for 20 plus years. I don't know about him.
Yeah, I don't know about this bonkers for Yonkers guy.
Yeah, not sure. So, that's cool. Yeah, I was great. It was great to hear from you. It's like, oh yeah, I got it. So we'll have to go. We'll have to make a trip of it one day and head on out there and have a few drinks and go through the whole experience over at Santa Anita. So, or even down at Del Mar, which is awesome when you go down.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I've only been down to Del Mar once, and it wasn't really like the full experience. It was more kind of like a sightseeing type thing. Like the races were going on, but it wasn't really like I wasn't locked in. So I'd love to go down.
Okay,
there,
we'll have to go in a different mode for sure.
Yeah, exactly. In the horse player mode as opposed to like the sightseer mode.
Okay, so let's get into Cera Candle Company. So people have been hearing about Cera Candles for the last couple of months here on That's What G Said, and we just got through the holiday season. But so how did you get into everything? Like, take us from the beginning. How did this all start?
Yeah, so I mean, I was never really a big candle guy myself. I never I would obviously aware of them, and I knew that like the Bath and Body Works and the Yankee Candles are the leaders in the candle industry. And I just kind of left it at that. And my mom actually came home one day with 15, 20 of these candles. And they said, oh, Bath and Body Works is having their big annual sale. And I said, wow, okay. So then and then I started seeing, I'm like, well, what's the big deal about that? And I just see there's a frenzy. Like it's almost like a cult movement with these candles. And I said, well, what's so special about them? What's the deal with them? And so I just got curious. And I started kind of looking into them. And seeing the entrepreneur and the business side of me is like, well, how expensive are they to make? What goes into the process? And I started seeing that what they're using, the reason what they're able to make them kind of at a cheaper rate than a soy-based candle, which is what I sell, is that they're using a paraffin wax. And the paraffin wax just is like a synthetic type wax, and it actually has a lot of the same elements as gasoline that you put in your car. And I said, well, that can't be safe to burn in your home. You're gonna literally light that on fire and burn it in your house.
We normally don't even think about this, right? Like we don't look at the stuff on the candle or like the instructions or anything. We just kind of light it. We're like, oh, okay, candle, But this was something that was kind of a new world to me too when you were talking about it.
Yeah, and so I kind of started kind of just, doing more casual research, still nothing too serious. I go, well, okay, so then what's the alternative if you're going to light that in your house? And again, most people aren't even aware of it. You just see, oh, wax candle. Sure, aren't all candles the same? I don't know what's the difference. Everything, there's different scents, but aren't they just, isn't a candle a candle? And so I said, wait a minute. And so I was, doing more research, and it in 2019, people are, just more conscious. What do you put in your body? What do you put in your house? What kind of products you're using? The soaps, the shampoos, the food, everything. And I said, well, it's weird that, you're seeing a lot of people that are health conscious as far as eating, or health conscious as far as, their cleaning products. But then they have the candle sitting there, and man, I don't even think they're aware. And then I started looking up, okay, well, someone has to be making a soy-based candle. If there's soy wax out there, I look up the soy candles, and for the same price, the soy candle is, $40, $50. And I go, oh, okay, well, there's your answer. The soy candle is just far too expensive. And so I said, there's got to be a way you can make a soy candle for essentially the same price as a paraffin wax candle. And so I started looking into it and found some suppliers that can make them. And I said, okay, well, let me try it out. I don't know if I can make it. I got to find the science behind it, and I don't know if it'll be successful. And so I kind of made a few testers, and I gave them to some people who like candles, my mom and some family friends and stuff, and they burned them. And they said, yeah, these burn really well. They smell, actually, I think they actually smell better. They produce a better scent throw. And knowing that they're better for me and better for my family and everything like that, I think it's a good idea. So I said, okay, let's turn it up a notch. And I kind of started looking into it more, looking for, my logo and, looking for a name. And I said, okay, it's got to be something quick and easy. I wanted to make it a simple design, something that would kind of fit in, look good. And so you don't have to kind of try to hide the candle somewhere, and it would be a nice design. You could kind of use it in any decor. And it would be an easy name to remember. And so that's, over several months, I kind of refined it and came up with it all. And that's kind of the finished product I came out with. And we're just trying to, kind of educate people on candles and just get it into as many hands as possible. And even if you don't think you're a candle person, or if, it's, traditionally, you see the females burn it, your mom burns one, your girlfriend burns one, and not too many guys are out there burning candles. And I kind of delved into that too. And we've got a few scents on the website that are kind of more of a manly type. We've got one's called Oak Moss and Amber, and that's kind of a more manly scent.
That was one I had. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a cologne type. And there's candles, there's hundreds of scents out there, and we're kind of trying to refine and find kind of a spread, because everyone's kind of got different scents. But I'm just trying to, just give everyone just to give it a shot. You can get especially with the promo code out there. If you use Gino, you can get one of those small candles, and you can get it for just over $10, and it'll last for over 30 hours. So, yeah. I mean, it's a good value, and, and I know, people got, you're trying to earn people's money. I don't want, people to buy it just for the sake of buying it, but, if for $10, if you can get a candle and see if you like it. And, so far we've gotten pretty good feedback, and we're always constantly looking to improve. And I figure, hey, for $10, you can try it, see if you like it. And if you like it, order more. And if not, no big deal. But yeah, I just wanted to get it into as many people's hands as possible, give them an alternative to the candles that they're normally accustomed to.
Yeah, we have so much more information nowadays with everything, with with health, with exercise, with food, that doesn't stop me from eating my bacon and cheese fries at Islands, all the time. But we're just so much more health conscious about everything that it just makes the most sense nowadays to have the top quality, the best quality. And what I like is everybody that's heard this interview now, you're a local. You're local right here. You've actually done all this alert work and all the legwork yourself. I got to be honest too. When I talk with new people that are going to sponsor the show and then I'm going to help promote, I always want to talk to them, and then I got to test the product myself first, right? I'm not gonna. I don't want to be shilling something that I really can't sell. And so I got a bunch of your candles first. We tested them out. Stephanie, I absolutely love them. Had a couple from my family too. My aunt and uncle got them. I know Stephanie's dad got some in Texas. We're just big fans of them because we burn the candles a lot too. And if you're someone who likes candles, just give them a try. And I promise you won't go back the other way. You'll notice there's a difference. You'll notice that they last a little longer. The scent is awesome. And now we know that they're healthy and they're coming from someone who's local, right? You're doing this right.
Yep, I'm doing it all, and they're all and I guess take it one step further too. If you're inclined to try to support, everything's made in the USA. It's all hand poured. I look at every single batch individually. I make sure it's the top quality. I'm not making them in a factory somewhere and shipping them in. Everything's made here locally and packaged locally, and it's all natural. And especially you got the new baby there. You got Milo there, and I see plenty of people, they're burning those candles in their house, and you got to, especially, if you don't want to take care of yourself, you should at least be conscientious of your kids and stuff like that. And you got a little one there, his lungs are developing, and my sister's got a couple of young kids too. And she's like, man, I was burning these candles all the time. I had no idea.
And I've been just more, because of becoming more aware of it, I've become more conscientious of it. I'm trimming the wick, as it goes down, I was doing a better job of, okay, it's towards the bottom now. I don't need to burn it all the way to the bottom. This is what the best quality is going to be. I just, you just learn a little bit more. You become a little bit more educated about it. And I've really enjoyed learning some of these things about it. And we'll do our best here to help everyone out there, because we said, man, it's cool to support a small business, someone who's kind of figured something out, and you've worked really hard at this, and you have a different take. You know what I mean? You can't try to go about beating succeeding in a world where there are big companies and big corporations if you're just going to try to do the same thing that they do without the same kind of backing. But you have a completely different take, and your angle is different, and that's why you have a real chance to being successful here.
Exactly. Yeah, that was kind of my thing too. I was like, I gotta have a corner. I gotta have an edge. I gotta have something that no one else is doing. So this is, my whole tagline is, you're going to get a luxury candle, but you're going to get it at an affordable price, and you're going to like it. And we've got some big things coming up. The holiday boxes were a big hit. We're going to do something similar kind of coming up for Valentine's Day. And we've got some new, some scents coming out along with Valentine's Day in the springtime that I think a lot of people are going to like, that we've kind of developed. And so I think, if you're, and even if you're not a candle guy, if you are a candle girl, if you think your significant other might be, we're going to have a Valentine's Day box that's going to be released here within the next couple weeks. And it'll be 2 candles that'll burn for at least 30 hours each, and you'll be able to get the whole box for $20. And so it's easy to pair with some flowers and chocolates, and you can get the candles and maybe earn you some extra points this year.
Boom. And then, if you're doing shopping for all sorts of, their friends and family, what's great is just like the variety of the scents that you have.
Mm-hmm.
You're up to like 25, 30 different scents. So you can literally pick them out for your different friends. Like you said, if you want to give some, like a buddy that's a guy who you're not sure if they're into the candles, like a different scent versus like one of your lady friends who you knows is into candles, mom, sister, daughter, girlfriend, wife, whoever it is. So yeah, that's what's great about this is the variety. And I'm really excited to continue to reload every time I need a new batch. So before we let you go, we're down to 8. We have 4 games coming up this weekend in the NFL. And so far now, after kind of a couple upsets last weekend, Patriots are gone, Saints are gone. The Ravens now are going to be pretty tough. The 49ers are going to be pretty tough. The Chiefs will be in the mix there too. The Packers, they were the bye teams this week. Do you have any just kind of overall thoughts on the remaining field and who you like right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're a Texans fan, which I had kind of gravitated towards once we didn't have an LA team, I kind of latched onto the Texans, and because they were an expansion team when I was looking for a team. So I said, okay, well,
Sure.
No one could say I'm a bandwagoner.
Yeah.
And I've kind of stuck it out with them, and they're just a frustrating team because the talent level's there, but they just seem to like kind of be anemic for, on Saturday, they were anemic for about 3/4 of the game and then kind of came alive and made a dramatic win. So you got to say, well, the Chiefs obviously are a higher quality as far as the skill positions go over the Bills. But if the Texans could play a complete game, maybe. I mean, not likely, but maybe. And so you give them a little nod. I can't see Tennessee giving the Ravens much of a game, but I've been wrong before.
And KC lost to the Texans earlier this year at home.
Mm-hmm.
Houston went in there and beat them earlier this year. So
yeah, and
you know what?
JJ
And
Watt's back. And
this is the situation I actually like the Texans in more. When they're kind of like on the road and they're not expected to win, it seems like that's when Deshaun can kind of pull something out versus like they're not as good when they're favored and they're at home and they're supposed to win. They seem like they lay an egg a lot. A lot of their like against the spread numbers this year.
Like they did the blowout of the Patriots, and then they just completely lay an egg against the Broncos the next week, and you're like, and maybe this week, hopefully, I haven't seen an update yet this early in the week, but maybe Will Fuller will be back. That'll provide him with a deep threat, and you never know. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic as a fan, but I don't want to get too homer on it and say, oh yeah, they're going to win when, the Chiefs are Andy Reid, he's been there before, and Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, the list goes on and on there. But that should be, if nothing else, it should be a very entertaining game. And the game I'm kind of most intrigued about actually is the Niners and the Vikings game, because if the Vikings can show, what they did defensively against Drew Brees and the Saints was very impressive. And if they could find a way to play that well defensively, and Kirk Cousins can find a play or two, it seems like every year in the playoffs there's a big throw to either Thielen or Diggs that wins them a big game. It seems like it's always against the Saints, but who knows? That could be a tough game for. This is probably Jimmy Garoppolo's biggest game as a starter.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting game, an intriguing game to me. And
then our final game, we got a couple of good quarterbacks over there with Rodgers and with Wilson, and it's going to be tough to go and win in Lambeau. But I think if anybody, like you said, kind of Seattle's been basically in every game this year, they never get beat up. And they never beat anybody up. It's like they're in every game, they're back and forth, and it just comes down to can Wilson make that play or not.
Exactly. I saw something this morning that I hadn't realized initially, but the Seahawks beat the Eagles 17-9. I believe the score was. They beat them by the exact same score in the regular season too. So they just seems like they kind of play in those style of games. It's like a fist fight, and they just kind of wear you down. And like you said, wait for Russell Wilson to make that one play. And if DK Metcalf can play like that again, they'll be tough. But you can never count out Rodgers at home. I'm sure Lambeau it'll be cold and it'll be snowy, and it'll be a typical frozen tundra type game. And so that one should be fun too. It should be a fun weekend.
Well, give us the information again. Where can we find all the good stuff about CeraCandles.com? And where can we find you on social media if we want to follow you and chat back and forth with you?
Yeah, so ceracandles.com is the website. You can go check it out. Make sure you use the code Gino. I'll get you 10% off any order of any size. And you can look on Instagram is the best way to get in touch. Cera Candles on Instagram, CERA Candles on Instagram. And if you have any questions about anything, or you want more information, or you're just curious about something, feel free to shoot me a message on there. And I'll be more than happy to chat with anybody who has any questions about the candles and see if we can get them out to as many people as possible. Tyler
Harringer, Cera Candles. It was good talking to you, buddy. We'll have to link up soon and get out to the racetrack and watch some games as well.
Absolutely. Pleasure being on, and thanks for having me.
Okay, that was Tyler Harringer. We'll be back in just a second here on That's What She Said. A big thank you to Tyler Harringer. Appreciate the support of Cera Candles here on That's What She Said. So if you can, big favor, if you can go out and purchase one of those Cera Candles, they're great for family, friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, moms, dads, you name it. All sorts of different scents. That'll be a big help to me. It'll be a big help to Tyler. So if you like to support small businesses and people who work really hard, and you notice this is something that he's really interested in, he's put a lot of time into. So give him a look. ceracandles.com, and make sure to use that promo code GINO. It'll get you 10% off your purchase. It'll let them know that that you found out about them on That's What G Said podcast. Up next, Andrew Champagne. He wrote an article last week, and it was a 50-point plan to fix racing. We all have a lot of gripes with horse racing. The last decade or so, things have been trending downward. There's a lot of in any business, in any organization, there are plenty of things you can look at and say, how do we improve this? How do we fix that? Nobody really takes the time to sit down and actually put these things on paper or jot them down. Andrew did. So we're going to go through, and, like anything, there are not all things that you're going to agree with. There weren't all things that I necessarily 100% agreed with. We had some back and forth on some of them, but I thought it was awesome how passionate he is about horse racing, and how he obviously cares about the well-being of the horse, and he cares a lot about the customer too. So enjoy this interview with Andrew Champagne. Okay, this next guest, you know him. He's been on That's What G Said podcast before a few times. We've talked to him a bunch on the Mike Abadir show. Very, very good friend of mine, and I'm happy to bring him on because he had a really cool article. Are we going with article? It's article, right? Or is this like a think piece? Article?
You can call it whatever you want. Think piece article sounds pretty good. Let's roll with that.
It was good, and it created a little bit of buzz out there. So I figured this would be something kind of cool to turn into a podcast, because give us the background. Like, where did this 50-point plan to improve horse racing come from?
The moral of the story here, Gino, is don't ever piss me off, because I will put forth a gigantic block of text that will beat you into submission until you go away. And that's pretty much it. As a preface here, Bradley Weisbord, the bloodstock agent, his father founded the TDN. He publicly asserted that he wanted racing to align more with barstool sports. And we can talk for as long as the day is about barstool sports, the good, the bad, whatever. I grew up with a sister. I've got two nieces. I'm uncomfortable with some of the things that they do. Let's put it that way. So I wasn't overly thrilled with that, and I tweeted as such. And Bradley Weisbord said, and I have the tweet up here, have you seen the metrics? Maybe the higher-ups should hire you. Find new gamblers. Put fans in the seats of racetracks. Good luck. Well, okay. So when that happened, I finished my workday. I got home, and I wrote a 50-point plan to improve horse racing in an hour. It is a miracle that the keyboard didn't melt. So that went online. It got a lot of buzz, and here we are.
Because it was to, and the thing about Brad, which I don't really know him too well, which is great, is like we all in the last year in particular, I think, where we've had a lot of negatives in the world of horse racing. Like, all of us who are in horse racing, we love it. Like, we all want the same things for it. Right? We all want it to be successful. We all want it to be publicly, not something that's like one of your points, optics matter. You know what I mean? We want it to be something that's thought of like positive again. And it's not quite a bit that way. Things have been trending down. Unfortunately, we saw and I saw a post today about total handle, betting per race, and field sizes all declining. And I think a lot of it, and we're going to go through here, a lot of these things are common sense. And that's kind of what's been frustrating in horse racing is that we have a lot of people who want the same thing, and we're not big enough to all say, well, we can each have our own little piece of the pie, because it doesn't really work that way in horse racing. We have to all share the same pie, and we have to kind of do what's best for the customer, what's best for the better. And we're going to go through this now. And we'll spend a few seconds on some of them that are more self-explanatory, and then others we'll dive into. But so you're now the racing czar. You have 50 easy steps to improve it. So right off the bat, you want to promote from within to account for many resignations that what would undoubtedly take place following the announcement of your appointment. But hey, I feel like with number 2, I might be one of those passionate young men or women who want to make a difference in the game. So I might have a big job in this regime, you know.
Well, I don't know. You got a kid, so
That's
young
true.
thing
That's true.
that might we might have to look past that. We might
You're
have
right.
to look the other way. But
You're right.
either way, you expect a call.
That's true. Okay. And then Breeders' Cup Derby, we had a laugh at that. That was number 3. And then number 4, which is great. If we're still short on people, we're cloning Tom Durkin, who has just been such a great racing ambassador through the years. And I don't think anybody's ever had a bad word to say about Tom.
I've got a Tom Durkin story for you real quick. So my dad and I are going to the Racing Hall of Fame. This was in the summer of 2017, which for a variety of reasons was a big summer for me. That was the summer where I beat everybody at Saratoga and asserted that, hey, I know how to do this. Well, we're at the Hall of Fame, and Tom Durkin walks in, and he's getting set to do his tour. And I've known Tom for a little bit. He's a really good guy. I introduce him to my father. They shake hands. Everybody starts talking, and Tom goes, "Oh, yeah, you're doing really well this summer." So we leave the Hall of Fame. We go around the corner. I look to my dad, and I go, 3, 2, 1. And I burst into this dance like Willie Mays Hayes in Major League after he finds out he's going to the big leagues and he hasn't been cut because Tom Durkin said I was doing a good job. I love Tom Durkin. He's a friend of mine. And it's one of those instances where when they say don't meet your heroes, they didn't mean Tom Durkin, because I can't say enough good things about that guy.
One of the ones who kind of did that for me, because I got lucky, is when you're, assigned reporter duty at the track some of those days, and you're at Santa Anita or Del Mar or wherever you are, and you get to interview the celebrity or whoever's around. And I got to interview Jim Rome a couple times right when he was coming up, and starting in ownership. And he was someone that I had listened to, I don't know how many hours from forever. And it was same kind of thing. My dad laughed after because we had listened to so many Jim Rome shows together, and he said my name kind of similar, just kind of like what you're saying. He said, yeah, great. Thanks a lot for that, Gino. Appreciate it. And it just was like, oh man, he said wow, he said my name. That was so cool. And yeah, it's really cool when we get an opportunity to meet someone that to interact with someone that we've looked up to forever. And Tom has just been so great and great for racing. So now we start to get into a lot more specific stuff. Like number 5, horse comes first. We're breeding to race, not racing to breed, which I completely agree with you. Like how are we thinking about it? Like how can we do this a little bit better?
Well, this leads into point number 6, and I don't want to jump the gun here, but we have gotten to the point where, maybe not for all breeders certainly, but for some breeders, a horse's ability to, and I use the term loosely, breeze an eighth of a mile as a 2-year-old is more important than anything they do once their racing career gets started. That's wrong, that's backwards, and it's time we did something about it.
It's just too much too early. We're asking too much of them too early, because then it comes down to who works a little bit faster and who works a little bit faster this time and who works a little bit faster this time. And it's just, they're not developed quite yet. I don't know too many people when you talk to clockers and people out there, they just don't, it's not really great for them, asking a lot of them so early on. So I'm with you. It seems a little bit too much. Number 7, racing needs its stars to run for as long as possible. This one I think is a real key, because to promote this, any male horse retired to breed as a 4-year-old may only be bred to 50 mares. If stallion owners want to jack up stud fees to compensate for the restriction, that's fine. We'll let the market determine if that works, and we'll see. You know what I mean? If you made some change like this, you'll see how the market determines. But this is a key, because as soon as people, this year was one, for example, and it was a little bit unlucky, but we got a little bit of buzz with the Maximum Security, Country House, with War of Will, and then we just didn't see them run. And there were horses that got hurt, and it wasn't quite retiring, but it just seems like every time there's some good buzz, a horse has a nice year and ends it with a Breeders' Cup win, or they kind of stamp themselves as a really big force heading into the next year, and then now we kind of see them run in maybe the Pegasus, and then they're done.
Exactly. And mind you, this change isn't going to keep an American Pharaoh or a Justify on the racetrack as a 4-year-old. It's just not going to happen. You can set the sky is the limit as far as their stud fee is concerned. They're going to find 50 mares to breed to, and it's going to be worth their while to retire the horse rather than having to pay the insurance premiums to keep the horse on the track. What I'm looking for are more horses like Gunrunner, who were good as 3-year-olds, very, very good as their 4-year-old and 5-year-old seasons keep going. Those are the horses that I want to keep in training, that I want to keep on the track, and that I want to be able to point a casual fan to and say, oh, look, one of the best horses in training is running. Here's what he's done. Here's what he's capable of doing. You want to be there. Right now, if I asked you, what horses do we have in training that are doing this right now, that are going to make their next starts on American soil? Gino, it's a short list.
Yeah, it is. And we're coming off a year where it didn't feel like the younger horses that are turning older have been we're just kind of getting into a weird space, too. And these points are key because it just feels like it's way more about breeding and less about the actual time of the years that are on the racetrack. And that's not good for the overall well-being of the sport. And we understand that's the thing. Like all of these, we're not expecting like, boom, you flip a switch with a lot of these. And that's why I know, like, I like how into most of them, you even write, we'll let the market determine if it works. This is kind of like going to be on a no idea is a bad idea. Like this is kind of going to be set and go because there's no perfect one catch-all solution. That's why you had to go through 50 different things here of like, okay, if we do this, then this might lead into this. And if we do this, then this might lead into this. And so now we get to number 8, where we're commissioning a long-term study on race day medications by an impartial, unbiased group of equine scientists and medical professionals. My only concern with this on the bottom part is like, can we find these? I think we probably can. It's just we get kind of caught up in like, oh, there's a board and there's some vets that work for some people here, and so everyone's kind of got their own interest a lot of the times.
My thing is, I think there is a middle ground nobody is touching on between race day medications are killing the sport. We can't have anything there. No horse can run on them on one side. And then on the other side going, horses bleed and LASIK stops it. I refuse to believe European horses simply don't bleed. Horses bleed. It happens. What I want is a long-term study by people who know what they're talking about, that have minimal business interests, to be able to say, okay, here's what we can find. Here's what we can recommend. And my 9th thing here is the fact that all jurisdictions are going to follow the rules that they lay out. The same situations for race day medications in California are going to apply in New York. They're going to apply in Kentucky. They're going to apply in Florida. Every track across the country that wants safety accreditation, which is another key to a couple of other things that I'll get to, are going to follow the same rules. And that to me is huge because the less ambiguity about the rules that there is,
100%.
The more transparency that there is, and the better confidence levels people will have in betting on the sport.
And we'll get to that, and it's like later down the list. The transparency is key, is one of the points, and to me, that's what this entire thing is all about. I think, and it's on all of the levels, Andrew, because we want transparency as we're fans, bettors, customers. That's what we are. We're someone who's going to be betting our own money. We like this. We've put thousands of hours, and a lot of us, our whole lives, years, portions of our lives dedicated to covering the sport, promoting the sport, betting the sport, analyzing the sport. We want, and everybody wants, transparency from the stewards, the track officials and the racing officials and like the leaders of the sport, the handicappers and the analysts, from the owners to the trainers to the jockeys. It's really on all levels, right? And that's why I think that was like the real key to all of this is about transparency, because now we get to, it's like some of the other medication ones. If you're a horseman and your horse needs Lasix or another medication to treat a legitimate issue, your horse goes on a list maintained by the neutral party. I like that. That seems great, right? This happens in other sports too, where there are banned substances and lists and stuff like that. But if players have injuries or ailments or certain things like that, they're okay, or disease or sickness or something like that. Like a lot of times you're able to, that's fine. Like as long as they're aware of that, if that shows up, that's fine. If your horse needs Lasix or another medication because you think it's a performance enhancer, you can go train somewhere else. Absolutely. It's not necessary for horses that don't need it. And then the number 12 one, the medication like fines or anytime somebody has like an overage, I mean, we see these fines and they are, to be honest, they're pretty pathetic. I mean, we see $500, $250, $1,000 at max. Like, I mean, if you're doing something wrong and the fine is that, like, what incentive is it to not keep doing it wrong?
This is the thing that I remember more than anything else. A couple of years ago, Bill Mott, whose medication record is as spotless as any trainer in the game, had an issue with a horse by the name of Saratoga Snacks, where the horse tested positive for some substance. I forget what it was. The punishment was, I believe, a minuscule fine and maybe a 10-day suspension. Bill Mott fought it. There were people in horse racing that said, Bill, why the heck are you fighting this? This is not really a punishment. Let it go. There's something wrong with that. And that's not the game that inspires confidence in the betting public, especially when there's so much negative publicity out there about the unsoundness of horses and any other number of things that you can shake a stick at. We need to have punishments with teeth, and they need to act as deterrents.
And the next couple are kind of like in this same sense. Violations get grouped into minor and major infractions. Minor infractions, when you're thinking like small overages, they're met by increasing fines, with the fifth violation and those beyond that being met with 30-day suspensions. That sounds good. 14 major infractions are met by suspensions of 60 days, 6 months, and 1 year, followed by a lifetime ban for the fourth. I'm with you, because that's giving you chances. We are not saying that you can't make a mistake here or there, but you just cannot do this over and over and over and over and over again. We just can't have that nowadays. Things, and it'll continue on to like another one of your points with the optics matter. When times change, things have to change. We just, whether or not it's everybody likes it, whether or not it's completely right or wrong, you can't say the same things you could say 20 years ago. Society changes, culture changes, everything changes. We have to change with it. Horse racing has done a really bad job of modernizing itself. We have to just continue to do a lot better in this sense too. National Board of Vets and Horsemen get to decide which substances fit into which categories, and the standards apply to all tracks as part of the NTRA safety accreditation program. Andrew, we're not talking about a million racetracks out there. Every year there's like less and less racetracks. There's no reason that there cannot be a set of rules that everybody abides by.
Precisely, especially when you get situations where a trainer gets in trouble somewhere and they're not really facing any punishment. They just go to a different circuit. I mean, take a look at what happened at Santa Anita last winter with all of the trainers that went to Oaklawn. And that's a situation that should not occur. There should be uniform standards, punishments in place that are the same everywhere, and it's a situation where everybody's playing by the same rules. I realize that probably sounds a bit idealistic, and there are probably people listening that say, oh my goodness, this guy is an idiot, this could never possibly happen. If racing's going to survive, it has to. Okay, that was scary. Let's try never to do that again.
And so, as we continue on, the safety accreditation program continues regulation pertaining to fouls and disqualifications. Same type of thing, which will be drafted on the advice of jockeys, trainers, and stewards. Yeah, that's something that doesn't seem like it would be too difficult. Like we see in other countries, this happens very easily. We see the way that the technology, with the technology that is out there, it's pretty crazy that when there's an inquiry or a disqualification or something like that, it takes so long. It shouldn't be so obscure. Like it shouldn't be so like left to imagination or left to someone's judgment. It really should be a lot more clear cut here. What's a foul? What's not a foul?
Gino, one of our friends, Rich Perloff, said this. I believe it was Rich. Maybe it was Simon Bray who said, racing is the only sport where after the officials throw a flag, they discuss with the athletes involved to determine if there was a penalty.
Yeah.
I understand that that's simplifying things a lot, maybe a little too much. But at the same time, that's not without merit. We need some sort of uniform standard because, and we're going to get to this, if I ask people in 4 different states, what is a foul that merits disqualification, I'm going to get 4 different answers. And that's not right.
Yeah. And that's the biggest issue that people have, that I see what the gripe of the fans, because again, all of this, like, I'm like, it doesn't matter. We need owners, we need trainers, we need horses, we need jockeys, we need everyone. But if there's no bettors, there's no game. there's no customers. If everybody gets sour, it goes away. There's no more racing. Plain and simple. So we always have to remember, like, what we're doing is for the bettors. It's for the customers. Like, they have to feel like this is all an honest game, on the up and up. Everything's right, and it's hard sometimes when we see things that have happened like the last couple of years. So, and we see just the inconsistency, because what happens on a Tuesday doesn't happen in the Kentucky Derby. What happens on like a sleepy Wednesday, and that kind of is number 18. Same rules apply to all races regardless of status. We're not making exceptions in grade 1 events just because more eyes are on us. We can't. If every year there's going to be like a new rule or new changes that are enforced and that have to start at a certain point, I can get with that, right? Like, we watch sports, and then some years, like, this year they're going to, in the NBA, there's not going to be as much hand checking. So the officials are going to crack down on that. Okay, I'm fine with that. Then that starts the next year, and then that becomes like overall consistent for everyone. But it cannot be what just happened is different than what happens. And it's like with the NFL, where I think a lot of people and how poorly the NFL has been officiated this year, and with the catch the last couple of years, and what's a catch, what's not. A lot of people lose faith, man. You bet some of these games and it's like a bad call at the end of the game, or, you're involved in a big pick 4 or big pick 5 or big pick 6, and you get DQ'd out of one, or you're someone who bet maximum security and you weren't thinking that he was going to come down, because you probably don't see a lot of horses that come down. Like, it's hard to get behind it. And a lot of times when we're talking, or I'm talking to my friends that are novice horse racing fans or that are just watching on the big days, it's hard to explain. It really is.
As poorly as the NFL is officiated sometimes, here's the thing. If you're an offensive lineman and you move early and the referees catch you, your team loses 5 yards.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a catcher on a baseball team
that,
and you move out in front of the batter, it's catcher's interference. Batter gets first base. This stuff. Whether or not we agree or disagree on certain disqualifications with regard to the likes of maximum security or others, I'd argue that's irrelevant. The fact is, what is a foul that merits a disqualification is a question that right now doesn't have one clear answer. And we need to get that one clear answer, whatever it is. There's a lot of people out there who are saying, let's adopt the Category 1 rules, whatever. Be an improvement over what we've got right now. And I don't even know, to be honest, what a lot of the Category 1 rules are. I just know that it's a set of rules that everyone knows exists and in general abides by. To me, that sounds like an improvement.
Number 19, if a track chooses not to comply with rules pertaining to overages and disqualifications, they will not earn safety accreditation, and it sacrifices graded status for all stakes races as well. Yeah, that makes sense. That seems good. And number 20 is one that I've referenced a few times. And number 37, the transparency is key, is one that I'll reference all throughout. Optics matter. It's key right now. Things have to be different because of what had happened at Santa Anita last year, for whatever the reason be, whether it be a bad racetrack, whether it be just total sheer absurd, unlucky, like weather, unfortunate, a group of horses that might not have been 100% sound, right? Whatever combinations it could have been, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's now that there has to be changes and that the optics have to matter going forward.
Precisely. We're in a different world right now, and that does not mean that we have to kowtow to certain special interest groups.
Nope.
And we'll get to that in a little bit. It's simply
a
matter of being able to win over the undecideds about racing. And right now, with certain strategies that are out there, we're not doing that. There are some efforts that are well-intentioned, but nobody outside of a racetrack is seeing them, and we don't need to win over those people. We have those people already. We need to win over the undecideds, who right now are only seeing what groups like PETA and Horse Racing Wrongs are putting out there because their strategies are better than ours.
Yeah, no organization whose stated goal or any trainer found to have sent a thoroughbred from a track to a slaughter pipeline gets booted from the game. No exceptions. That's pretty self-explanatory there. I think we all agree on that one. No organization whose stated goal is to end horse racing gets to help make decisions within the sport. And that's kind of the next few, which, I mean, we're talking about PETA in particular and other organizations, but, this is number 23. If organizations have strategies to hit racing hard, we will hit back harder. The days of the sport being a punching bag for well-coordinated attack campaigns are done. Completely agree. And it's made clear that horses on racetracks get far better care than the cats and dogs at shelter, one by one group that euthanizes thousands of them on a yearly basis. 100% agree here. There's no reason to, when it comes to this, there's no like fluff. There's no BS when it comes to these horses on the racetracks. For the most part, get very good care. And like anything, there are going to be bad examples that we can use. There are going to be really good examples that we can use. We don't have to pretend like the bad examples don't exist, and we don't have to completely throw them. We have to understand that they're there. And like you said, it's a zero tolerance policy for that. But no matter what you do, there are going to be bad sides of any sport, organization, team, company, you name it. I was going to say it's been a rough year as far as with dealing with an organization like PETA, and it's kind of hard to fight back when things are going poorly. I think we have to, like you're saying, we have to like figure out what's the best approach, what's the best way to fight back.
Credit where it is due. There are organizations at Santa Anita that are filled with horsemen, horsewomen, people who care about the game, that are running counter protests, and I think doing a pretty good job.
I do too. Yeah, Doug O'Neill is heavy in that, and they're out there in the mornings, and that's the thing. Like nothing that anybody says when they're punching back is false. They're all out there. They've sacrificed their life for these animals. They will do anything for these animals. They love them, just like we do with any of our pets, dogs, cats, any of them. So I agree. There are some positive things. I would just like to see. This is just one of the ones that was hard for me because I just don't know. I guess there really is no like right. This is the only answer.
Well, for starters, we can stop rolling out the red carpet for them to make decisions at Santa Anita.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a should not occur. When PETA's stated goal is to end horse racing, why are we letting them help run horse racing? Like that's a does not compute for me. And I understand that it's a tricky political situation. I understand there's a lot of landmines there. But to me, that just seems like a horrible tactical blunder, and I sincerely hope it doesn't wind up costing Santa Anita a lot in the long term.
So we're up to 25. 25. It's also clear that the head of a prominent organization striving for the extinction of horses has no problem profiting off of animals when he put the end products of them on pizzas sold at his restaurants. Yeah, it's like we can all point fingers, but we dig a little and we do a little research, and we find that everybody's can be very hypocritical at times. So if you're not perfect, I wouldn't throw stones at those who have sinned, right? If you
There's
were with
something about glass houses there, to be sure.
Something about that.
Just to make this clear, this is the head of Horse Racing Wrongs that in the past ran a pizzeria, had no problem putting animals on his pizza, but all of a sudden you put horse racing involved and he's got a gigantic issue with it. To me, honestly, a lot of his stuff reads like he went to the track once, was alive for 6 out of 6 in a pick six, got beat, and is going on a temper tantrum about it years later. That's how it reads to me. And I understand that there are people out there that do not like horse racing, and you know what? That's their right. I understand that there are reasons not to like racing, and I'll accept that for sure. I will talk about that until the cows come home, basically. But when you go after people in the manner that this guy has, which, to be blunt, is nothing short of rude and disrespectful, I'm not going to have respect for the guy. And I'm not going to have respect for what he says and how he conducts himself because, to be blunt, he doesn't deserve that.
And we're reopening the hill at Santa Anita. I agree. One of the things that was unfortunate about what happened last year at Santa Anita, there were some scapegoats, right? There were some people, and I think some things in particular, like the downhill course, that got blamed for things when you really dig into it. They didn't have really anything to do with the problem. We're reopening Hialeah Park by any means necessary. That's number 27. And number 28, we're issuing moratoriums on the extension of meets at Saratoga and Del Mar. Boutique meets are boutique meets for a reason. Hey man, if for no other reason, it's expensive, right? Like I don't think people realize how expensive it is to try to run a meet there again when through another month, 6 weeks of the year when that's tough to find like housing for a lot of people, for your grooms, for your valets, for your hot walkers, for, owners who want to come into town, or for trainers who have families. It's one thing when it's in the summer, when kids aren't in school, when you can take a little time off work, but it's hard to do. We've seen the November meet at Del Mar. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to do. And I don't know. I don't want to say it. They've stepped up, and Southern California racing like needed Del Mar. They needed another place to run because unfortunately Los Alamitos, without the turf course, like they just don't get the support they deserve. But I'm with you. It's like we don't want to get the oversaturation for some of these really great things left because it dilutes it.
Exactly. If something is special in the short time it's there, the key isn't overexposing it. The key is keeping it special so that it maintains its appeal, not just for bettors, but for people that are discovering the sport for the first time. I grew up an hour and a half south of Saratoga. Saratoga is a cathedral. It's one of the few cathedrals horse racing has left. If I had grown up an hour and a half away from insert whatever D or E level track here that you want, who knows if I'm attracted to horse racing as much as I am or as much as I was when I was a kid. It's about preserving the value of these places. And unfortunately, when coming up against the value of the almighty dollar in the eyes of people that might not necessarily have the best interests of one venue at hand when they're looking at the bottom line of their organizations, it's a struggle. And I have to tell you, when Saratoga mulled over extending their meet, I was really happy they kept it at 40 days and went to 5 days a week. It's a nice compromise. I think it's fine the way it is now, but I'm shuddering at the thought of it potentially opening up in early July or even, my goodness, even in June. That to me just seems like overkill, and it seems like too much of a good thing winding up being a bad thing.
Like 29 and 30, this is one of the most frustrating things because it just like your whole list is like built upon like 4 or 5 things that are the most frustrating to fans. Like, and it all comes down to, transparency. We'd like to see like, people that break the rules have to pay for it. We'd like to see like just actually know what's going on all the time. It would be nice to have a little bit more information and we don't have to pay a whole ton for. But this one is so simple. The post times. I mean, and I'm going to give a shout out to Matt on Twitter at Munnings24 on Twitter. He actually just did exactly this. Tracks will work together to coordinate post times whenever it is feasible to do so. Instead of fighting each other for the same gambling dollars, we're creating more opportunities for churn. Now, I will say that through the years of working at TVG, most tracks, and in particular, the smaller race tracks, are really good about this because they get it. They understand. We would call them a lot of times over our producers and say, hey, we have 3 races running right now. If you hold your race for 5 minutes, we'll give you like 2 minutes of coverage leading up to your race. You'll get a little more money. And a lot of times those small tracks would say, absolutely, they get it. Sure. We'll wait. We'll back off a little bit. And what Matt did at Munnings24 on December the 27th, he went through all of the post times from all of the different racetracks, and he set it up where everybody could be off of each other by about 5 minutes. And then this comes down to number 30. Post time means post time. Barring emergency situations, which are waiting for ambulances, technical or starting gate technical issues, starting gate malfunctions, every effort must be made to run their races at listed times. And this is something that hurts churn. It hurts people's bankroll. It hurts people who are really like looking at a big day of racing, and what we're talking about in particular, I think, are like the Saturdays and Sundays. Like, it's even worse during the week when there's less tracks running and they run right on top of each other. That's just like eye rolling and like head scratching. But on the big days, on Saturdays, where it's like, okay, these are multiple tracks that are owned by the same people, or there are a couple really big races going, right now that everybody wants to watch the both of them. Like, do we really have to run them at the exact same time? It's like, when we're watching it, it's almost like they're trying to do it instead of trying to not do it, right? Like, I sometimes like, are they really trying to run the races at the exact same time?
Gino, we both know that the people listening out there aren't idiots. They're smart people. They know what track we're talking about here. It's the same track that always pops up, and it's frustrating. When I was at TVG, there was one instance where Gulfstream Park, at least it seemed like deliberately, ran the first 2 or 3 races of their card, and these were maiden claimers. These were not good races. They deliberately ran them on top of Group 1 multi-million-dollar races from Dubai World Cup Day. Who does that help?
Yeah.
It helps no one. It doesn't help you all that much. It makes you look, to be honest, kind of stupid.
Yep.
It doesn't help the other track for sure. It doesn't help TVG because the producers in back are scrambling, wondering, oh my goodness, what the heck are we going to do? Why do we have to deal with this? It's a no-win situation that should really be avoided unless you're talking about situations like the ones I outlined in point 31, which I think is actually a really nice way to tie everything together to where, look, if you want to drag a couple of minutes, that's fine. You're going to pay for it, and we're going to give you the out of potentially having a little good PR.
Yeah, so penalties for post-time violations or mandatory donations to Thoroughbred Aftercare Foundation. So if you want to set up a day where you're intentionally dragging your races, you're going to be donating, and it's going to look good on you for PR purposes. That's fine. At least somebody's getting something out of this, right? And more so because I it's just a common misnomer. Yeah, you wait a little bit, you're going to get a little bit more money. But I think, and you're talking about Gulfstream in particular, like it's turned a lot of people off to it. You know, there are a lot of bettors that are like, it's hard to build my schedule around playing Gulfstream races because I just don't know when the races are going to go off, if I'm going to be able to, how long my money is going to be tied up. If I'm playing like a multi-race exotic, it could be tied up like an extra 15, 20 minutes, half an hour than I think sometimes when it gets really bad. So it's hard, man. We have schedules, you know, and that's the thing. Nowadays, it's not like, unfortunately, like I think horse racing wants it to think where like, and we're just talking about horse racing. We're not talking about whatever everybody else has. Like horse racing is not just competing with, you know, other tracks anymore, each other. They're competing with, you know, now sports betting. They're competing with Netflix, just like your time in general. You know, everything is kind of competing. So if it's like, if you're gonna kind of smack me in the face and treat me stupid a little bit, it's like, okay, I'll just go spend my money and my time, you know, elsewhere. We move on to 32. Fans that go to the track will receive vouchers at the gate. You know, and a couple of these coming up that you have, like I like your idea, and I think we could even go farther with this. Like, there's fans that go to the track will receive vouchers at the gate. Grandstand admission is good for a $5 voucher. Clubhouse admission is good for a $10 voucher. I like this, and I think there's zero reason to me, unless you're going to be doing something like this where it's like a package and you're paying $5 to get in and you're getting a program and you're getting a $5 voucher and you're getting, you know, like a basic program to get in. If you want to pay for, you know, a clubhouse or, you know, turf club or whatever it is, that's fine. You're going to pay more. But there's no reason that the average person can't walk into the racetrack for free. It should not cost you a whole lot to get in there, period. Because the point that you're making in, you know, 33 is that these vouchers are good for wagering and cannot be cashed out. I love that. But the real point is, if a few first-time track goers make money with their first bets, we're convincing them to bet their winnings back, stay involved in the sport, and most importantly, the future of the game, come back with their friends. I'm telling you, you know, growing up, I'm sure you probably had this too. A lot of times when people would come to the racetrack with me, I loved bringing my friends, people that hadn't come. You're kind of teaching them about it. You play a ticket together. You're showing them what when looking through the past performances, kind of teaching them a little bit about it. And it was always a few that it seemed like they won that first time, and then every time they came back, they would win. We know it's not like that. And then there were a couple that didn't win their first time, and they kind of had bad luck. But those few that won the first time, they came 10 times more than the others few that lost. And, you know, we can't create the winning for everyone, but it just give people an opportunity, even if it's just $5 to win, to kind of feel it, to experience it, and it's going to keep them coming back. When you get in the door and you feel like you're already get punched in the face and you spent $40, it's like, damn, I don't really have that much left to bet.
I've got 2 points to make here. The first is that a friend of mine in the business, he handicapped for Capital OTB in New York, a guy named Tom Amello, is huge in fan education, and he has this concept pegged to a science. His theory is based on making sure people either win or have fun while they're losing. Yep. I mean, take a look at the number of gamblers that are in Las Vegas. They go there, they lose their shirts. They always come back because they had fun while they lost. Those are the experiences that we need to create. And that leads into the second part, which my father is going to appreciate because he kept saying this every time I was a kid. I would always roll my eyes at him, and now I understand that he's right. If you go to a racetrack and you're driving there, you're in for what? $10 to park, whatever gas money costs, plus admission, plus whatever it costs to either stock your cooler or buy lunch or drinks at the track. You're in for what, 50, 60 bucks before you even place a bet? Let's do something for the people that are making the extra effort to come out, as opposed to sitting on their couch where the tracks don't get as much of the handle. Let's do something for these people, and let's do something to keep them coming back. $5 for grandstand admission, it doesn't seem like much, but if you're a first-time track goer, you take that $5 voucher, you go, you bet an even money shot, and the horse wins by 5 or 6 lengths.
Sure.
You're going to bet that money back.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes so much sense on so many levels. When tracks run mystery voucher promotions, fans eat it up. I don't understand why we can't do this on a consistent basis.
And we look at number 34 now. We're optimizing the betting experience to make it easier for new players to understand what's going on. I think this all like ties in with fan education too. If racing is marketed as the original fantasy sport with a new draft taking place every 30 minutes, how much easier that to understand than a set of past performances that to a racing neophyte may as well be Egyptian hieroglyphics. I think this one to me is kind of where racing it's hard right now too, because racing, and I think it's a little bit harder with some of the niche sports, because you want to try to serve a couple masters at the same time, right? You want to make sure that you're not dumbing things down so much that you don't turn off your longtime players, your big bettors, your fans that have watched you for forever, but you don't want to be so inside baseball that somebody turns on the TV and immediately is like, what the hell is this guy saying? Because this is something that I myself get into an issue with sometimes with, like, I'll talk to a friend or someone that doesn't know the track. And I think I've learned through the years of, okay, what level are we, or like how, like, is someone going to even understand the terminology that I'm saying right now? You know what I mean? Like, this is like a different language you're speaking. If you come into horse racing, like that's what's difficult too. You can pick up like football, or like watch, understand a little bit more like baseball, basketball. You kind of can get, even if you're someone that's never been involved in it. But when someone starts talking about horse racing and furlongs and length sometimes and things that you're like, I've never heard this in other like walks of life, it does get a little tricky. So for me, like, this is even something that I've noticed with, whenever we see a horse racing TV show, Luck is the one, or jockeys or some of those that have been on, because a lot of times it's like, okay, is this pointed out horse racing people, or is this pointed at the greater audience to kind of, your novice person? That's to me one of the issues that horse racing has kind of had, and I think it's tough to serve both of those when you're still, like a small niche sport right now.
Precisely. And you hit the nail on the head with regard to fan education. That's a huge thing. The other thing that I think is obvious to anybody that's been in the game for a while, there's a lot of horse racing 101 materials out there. If you want to know a little bit about horse racing, there are resources you can use. There are complete idiot's guides to betting on horse racing.
Mm-hmm.
There's betting for dummies, whatever you'd like. There's that. There's a lot of horse racing, say 301 or 401 level stuff out there. You look at all the handicapping books that are out there. You read some of the handicapping discussions and game theory discussions that are on social media. You can get lost in that stuff, and that's fine. There's no handicapping 201 level stuff out there, and that's one of the things that I really strive to do with everything that I produce. I want to try to be able to make it so that people of any skill level are able to at least take something out of it and learn something, because if you can learn something while you're doing it and you apply it to something that you do in the future, then it's productive and it keeps people coming back. And the more you can use that, the more you're likely to bet, the more fun you're likely to have. And if you catch a couple of tickets doing that, eventually people are going to say, hey, what are you doing? And that's when you can get new fans in the game. This is nothing revolutionary, but it's something that's not being done nearly as much. And if I'm doing that for at least one or two people, I'm considering that a win.
100%. I love that too. The why, that's one thing I've always tried to do and I've always asked that question, why? You know what I mean? When who you like this horse, why? That's always what I want to know. You like this game, you like this team, you like this, why? That's kind of what G-Shed this show is like the why, from the TV shows to everything that we break down. It's the why. I really like what we're getting through here. So now we're up to 35, and I mean, this is just a plain and simple one now, Andrew, just like I was talking about with so much other entertainment out there. Incredible entertainment, streaming services, and now sports betting on the national landscape, going to be legal state by state by state, kind of like one at a time. We're getting there. We have to set some national standards for takeout and breakage. We have to just say, hey, nobody can go higher than this 18, 20%. I like what you said here, 18% on win play show bets, 20% on exotics. I mean, I don't see why any of these racetracks can't even go a little less than that. Whenever we see, which is like your number 36, tracks encouraged to find new wagers to try. Not all of them will work. Sure, like horse racing roulette, that was awful. And and maybe we need to just get some advice and some word of, all it does is, hey, reach out to some gamblers, reach out to some people that and just ask them, do a little trial and error with some of these wagers. See, is this something that you would play? Is this something that you would be interested in playing repeatedly? And it seems like, you mentioned the Stronach 5. It's a low takeout pick 5. Seems like any time we're getting a low takeout pick 5 or a low takeout pick 4 or something with low takeout at one of these tracks, even if it's a harder wager to hit, pick 4, a pick 5, that's fine. It gives people a little bit more incentive. We were even talking about this the other day. I'm not, and you're not someone who's betting thousands of dollars a day. We're not somebody who has like massive bankrolls either. It's hard sometimes to put your entire bankroll into a low takeout, into like one sequence. But I feel a lot better about doing it when I know that those sequences have low takeout and are going to give me a little bit more of a bang for my buck. Generally, let's say a few years ago, maybe I spend 40% of my bankroll on a pick 5 sequence, pick 4. Now I'm looking at that sequence and it's a low takeout sequence. And I'm going, you know what? I'm better off hitting like 1 or 2 of these a week than hitting for little every day. Maybe I put 60% of my bankroll into this. It makes me feel better about the money that I'm investing.
Sure. And I'm going to take this point by point here. I understand that there are some people who even think that the 18% and 20% rates that I suggested were too high. I know Andy Asaro, who has a lot of ideas, a lot of opinions, good for the game, has said that he wants 12%. I think that's too low. I want to make sure racetracks stay in business. And ultimately, if racetracks can't stay in business, it really doesn't matter what we're negotiating for here. I think 18 to 20 is a compromise position. I think that works. If we can lock that in for a couple of years and see where we're at in a couple of years, we'll go from there. But I think that's a good starting point. And with regard to the new wagers to try, I'm all for quirky things. I like low takeout pick 5s. The Stronach 5, I believe, is $1 bet. That's a little steep for me, but I understand what they're trying to do. And if you can play that with a couple of singles, all of a sudden you can still create a ticket that's playable, isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg, and you've got a shot at a nice score. I like 20-cent pick 4s at Woodbine, for instance. If you get big fields, suddenly the 20-cent denomination isn't all that different from a 50-cent denomination elsewhere where there are smaller fields. If you can capitalize on something that has some appeal that maybe only works at 1 or 2 tracks, I think you do it. Now, horse racing roulette, that was... we could go on about how bad of an idea that was and how there were certain races at Gulfstream and Santa Anita where the horse racing roulette pool was, I kid you not, less than $20.
Yeah.
Chances are there have been some horse racing roulette wagers that swept the pool, and I'm not making that up. But you got to try things. And by the way, if any of you read it and got the Magic School Bus reference at the end with taking chances, making mistakes, and getting messy, more power to you.
Miss Frizzle, transparency is key. 37. This is, to me, like what this entire thing was about. And this is what all of us as customers, we're bettors, we are customers. We just want, and I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, at all levels, from the stewards, whether it be with the disqualifications of the races and anything involving owners and trainers and decisions that they have to make with, fines and with suspensions and things like that. We want to know that the track officials and those stewards are all doing what's best for the customer to keep bringing us back. It feels like in a lot of businesses, almost every business, what's the motto? The customer's always right. It sure doesn't feel like that in horse racing. It sure feels like a lot of time they tell us that we're wrong with the things that we want and the things that we've asked for. The analysts and the handicappers, I don't think this is like a big thing, but I see people they want to know that the people that are talking to them are people that have put in their time and their effort, that are educated, that have a background in this, that are going to be investing their own money as well, and that are not just kind of talking to hear themselves speak. We want to know that the owners are on the up and up. They're doing what's right for the horse. We want to know that the trainers are doing what's right for the horse. We want to know that the jockeys, are doing what's right in the race and that they're trying to win every race or doing, completing the instructions that the trainer gave them about each horse. It sounds weird. Some races you don't really necessarily want to win. It's not that you don't want to win, but maybe it's not as you're progressing a horse. That's different than I think, fixing a race or something like that. We need transparency at all levels.
Freaking men. If you take anybody out there that's never been to a racetrack and you ask them, hey, would you ever bet on a horse race? Chances are you're going to get a couple of people saying, nah, those are fixed. Now, some of those are due to factors horse racing can't control. If you've never seen The Sting, I urge you to see that movie. It's fantastic. You get movies like that out there that tend to give racing a dramatized image, and that's one thing. But then you get stuff that happens that makes you question a lot about what's going on as far as transparency being key. That is at all levels. All we're asking for is a fair shake. And again, to have fun while losing. If I feel like I'm getting hosed, chances are, if I'm a first-time track goer, I'm not coming back, and my wagering money's going elsewhere. We can't afford to lose those people right now.
Losing money is fine. Like, losing money's fine, right? It's the cost of entertainment that we're going to pay. And if I go to the track, some of my friends, and I have a day where I lose some money, that's fine. It's just it's the the questionable DQs or the weird changes that kind of leave a bad taste in your mouth. I even wrote like a few things down. As far as this kind of goes down, and we'll hit this in a few when we get to like the early 40s. But even transparency with things like racetrack cancellations, surface changes. Sometimes we see shady things happen in like pick six jackpot carryovers where the races have started and then the sequence changes and now there's no way to like all of those things. We need to be on the up and up because nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect, right? Nobody's going to pretend like, oh, sure, everything's going to be great every day, all the time. But if there is transparency, if we're at least being honest, I can accept that there are going to be mistakes, there are going to be issues, there are going to be things that don't go my way. As long as I, on a daily basis, am seeing what's happening, then I'm not going to be questioning the sincerity of any of it.
No, not at all. All we're asking for is a fair shot at any level. And when you get situations where track officials know rain is coming, they have radar that say rain is going to be here in a half an hour, and you've got a pick four starting, and you know that this is a rainstorm that's going to knock races off the turf, why aren't you taking races off the turf before the sequence starts? At that point, you get things like the all button being used, and those knock the payout down significantly, and they kill you, by the way, if you decide to single a horse in a turf race. That race gets moved off the turf, and instead of hitting the single, you wind up only getting the all button once, whereas people that had no conviction in the race and bought it wind up getting the all button 5 or 6 times after scratches. So in the end, taking a stand actually penalizes you. There's so many situations like that, and we can go on and on and on, but that's something that should always be avoided. And transparency, again, needs to be key. If we can't explain something to someone that's never been to the racetrack before in a manner that they can understand it, chances are it's the wrong decision.
Partner number 38, partnerships and owning horses are fun. Not knowing how much of each horse is owned by which stakeholder is grading. Those numbers get published. These are all under transparency thing. I'm sure it's not easy for some of the Eclipse Award voters when they're trying to vote for the Eclipse Award for Best Owner. Also, when it seems like the last few years, it's all partnerships, combinations. Everybody owns a little piece of this one. Everybody owns a little piece of that one. Reasons for trainer changes gets published. That's great, especially with the in parentheses Run Happy's page. Would have been positively fascinating seeing the why on the trainer change, because a lot of times, when we see a claim, that's fine. We know it was a horse was in a claiming race. They were up for the purchase, but when we see the private move sometimes. You want to know why. It would be very interesting to know some of the whys in there. And we just, that's something that we would know in football, in baseball, and basketball. If somebody changes teams or doesn't like the coach or the organization, we find those things out for the most part.
Exactly. And I'm going to take these a couple of points at a time. The thing that you mentioned about Eclipse Awards and owners, that's the reason I abstain from the odor category. How am I supposed to judge if one owner who owns 100% of a horse that's going to be horse of the year is more worthy than another owner that owns, say, 20% of 5 Grade 1 winners? What do I do? How am I supposed to figure that out? There are no guidelines, and this is a situation where I don't think anybody foresaw the explosion in partnerships that happened maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's nobody's fault. But at the same time, this stuff is available for a lot of publicly traded major companies. We know how much of these companies each person or corporation owns. Why can't we do that with horses? I feel like that information should be readily available, and it's the same with reasons for trainer changes. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes you get horses that could ship from one circuit to another. Say an owner has a trainer at Golden Gate and a trainer at Santa Anita. Ship the Santa Anita horse up to Golden Gate, goes in the other trainer's barn. That's one thing. But there are certain instances where that would really benefit the public. And again, transparency being key. If that helps somebody make a lot of money, chances are they're going to keep coming back.
We are up to the information part now and the data. Now we're up to number 40. Replays of each race run around the country are made available at the end of each racing day to all fans without restrictions. Period. I mean, it's amazing that in this day and age they're not. It really is. It's crazy. And we get to number 41. Equibase data is made available to any individuals who want to use it for a small annual fee. This prevents a repeat of the handicapper saga and allows passionate fans another way to explore the sport. Hey, Netflix, Prime, Hulu. I'm someone who now with this show, I'm a subscription to The Athletic. I have a subscription to Pro Football Focus, to Football Outsiders. I'm fine with paying $10 a month for really good information, for information that is going to go above and beyond just the regular, box score information. I'm completely fine with that. And I don't think people would have an issue with paying a monthly fee or a yearly fee. It's just that fee cannot be this much. Like, I can't be having to pay that much more for my horse racing past performances than for the other forms of entertainment, for the other analytics type data from any of these other websites that I like from football. It can't be that much more.
Can I nutshell the handicapper saga that I mentioned? Because I think it hits a lot of points. A developer by the name of Robin Howlett came up with this idea called Handicapper, spelled handy, Handy, capper. And it was a pretty simple open source app that used Equibase's data. It wasn't necessarily something that the developer was making money off of. It was just something that he did. He did it during his free time. He tinkered, and he came up with something that was pretty cool. I personally didn't use it, but I know some people that did, and they found it a pretty enjoyable thing. Equibase sent a cease and desist letter, as opposed to trying to find some way in which to work with the developer. Now, credit where it is due to T.D. Thornton at the Thoroughbred Daily News for asking what I think is one of the best questions anyone in horse racing journalism has ever asked. He went to Equibase, and Thornton asked, hey, listen, you've admitted that you think this is a really good idea. Instead of shutting this down, why didn't you have this person work for you?
Yeah.
Equibase didn't really have an answer. And that's what I want to eliminate. There's no reason to squash that stuff. Tracks, organizations, people in the game are all saying, we want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. Someone has an idea. Someone rolls something out. And all of a sudden they recoil in disgust and say, you want us to do what? Over and over and over and over again, Gino, and it shouldn't happen.
No, it's frustrating. And it's like, it's at all levels. It's with It's at racetrack on smaller scales, and then it's on bigger scales with things like this, all the way up to the information. It's like, one thing I always try to do is, one thing that I know is I sure as hell don't know everything. And I know that the things that I think I know pretty well, I work really hard at, I try to be as informed at as possible. But the things that I don't know quite as well, I'm going to reach out to the people who do know and who are smarter than me and ask their opinions and kind of get their feel for things. And I wish racing did that a little bit more. It seems like the racing is the opposite in that they're scared of like the really smart people. Somebody who has, a different way of thinking that might change things and might, have to take a step back and then take 5 steps forward. They don't want to change anything. And you know what, Andrew? If everything was going great and every year horse racing was continuing to grow and handle was raising and everything was going better and there were more racetracks and other sports were going, hey, we need to do how horse racing's doing it, then I would say don't make any changes. But that is really far from the truth. It's just not the way that things have been the last decade, 15, 20 years in particular. So, yeah, it's frustrating. And I don't think people would have a problem with paying some. It's just, you cannot have to pay $6, $7, $8 for like a day's past performances. It's just you having to like have accounts or all sorts of, bet a certain amount of money to be able to watch replays or past performances or this or that. It's just, the more information's out there, the more interest it's going to drive. It's just plain and simple. It will. We're going to move now to 42. Corporations are not individuals. And now 43, we will market the sport with both respect for the customer and enthusiasm that, as of now, is usually only reserved for big days. This is key, man. Like, it's about the customer. We have to respect them. And even like 44, I like those big days will market horses and the humans above all else. Music and fashion can play secondary roles. Hey, nobody's saying not to have a band bring you there. Nobody's saying not to have a hat contest. Nobody's saying not to have food trucks. Nobody's saying not to do all of those things. Those are great things. Like, you look at the NFL, football is hugely, wildly popular. They're having problems getting people to come to the stadium to watch games because the experience at home is just so comfortable. It's just so nice. Like, we all love it there. That's fine. We have to remember that this is a gambling game. This is a betting game. And this is back to the fan education thing. We don't want to kind of smack our long-term fans in the face a little bit. We want to be able to serve both. And I think there's plenty of way we can serve both, where you can have some fun, you can teach people, you can educate them, you can do a little bit of both, and you can respect the horses who are the focus. It's about the horse every time we're out there. It's about that puzzle, right? The equine puzzle that we're all trying to figure out. Like, that's what this is all about. And we need to do a better job of reminding people, hey, that's what this is about.
Going back a little bit to the corporations are not individuals thing, just for the record, that is applying to point 41, which is the Equibase data is made available to individuals who want to use it for a small annual fee. If you're a big business and you're trying to make money off the data, you're going to pay for it. That's the difference that I was trying to make, just in case that's not clear for anybody there, because we got hung up on point 41 for a little bit, and I just wanted to tie up that loose end. As far as marketing the sport correctly on some of its biggest days at all levels, Gino, if I say the words nice view, will you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah. We just have to be better. It's simple. When it comes to this, we have to be better. Yeah, we'll get to 45 now. We're getting down towards the end with just 4 or 5 more. This has been a really good talk. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy as we kind of dived into so many of these different topics. It's actually funny too, because I wrote down DraftKings. They're kind of in a little bit of a funny scandal right now with the Bachelorette winning and this and that. We'll see with the integrity of DraftKings. I'm curious to what happens with that in the next few days. As we're talking about the big days of horse race, horse emojis do not count as horses within those marketing materials. Yeah. If there's a commercial and the commercial is a bunch of like 20-something girls in like scantily clad clothing drinking, and that's the commercial, I think we need a little bit more.
Mind you, there is a place for that.
Sure.
But at the same time, it doesn't grow the game.
I'm not a prude. You know what I mean? Like, I am no prude. I don't mind. I don't think there's the key is that we keep hitting on is there's a place for all this stuff, right? You have fun. I'm not saying like this is all supposed to be fun, right? We're all doing this for fun, for entertainment, to have a good time. But it's like it's in anything, right? Everything has to be time, place, put people in the best spot to succeed, put people in the right roles, have people doing what would be the best for the track, for the moving forward. And I don't care if you're a guy, girl, old, young, fat, ugly, skinny, good looking. If you've done your work, if you care, if you're prepared, if you have, done the time, like that's what matters. I think that those are the people that you want to help put forward. And we want to remember when it's the Breeders' Cup, when it's the Kentucky Derby, how difficult it is to get there. The stories. I like the stories about the horses. I like the stories about the people. Those are fine. I want to hear from people giving me, like we said, kind of right in the middle. I don't want to be inside baseball with all the terminology, but we want to know some betting stuff. We see it on, broadcast now. We get more and more next-gen stats on the NFL. So there can be statistics and numbers and information that you explain to someone that they pick up, and now moving forward, they know what it is. I think it's a fine line that we have to walk, but this is something that horse racing has to do, I think, a much better job of doing.
Now, before we move on, I do want to give credit where credit is due, because there are some broadcasters for major entities that do a terrific job with this. Eddie Olczyk is a godsend.
There's no blanket with this. You know what I mean? There are plenty, and most of these people are people that we know, respect, and are good friends of ours. It's just this is something that needs to be more of a uniform all over the place. That's really all it is.
Eddie Olczyk, Matt Bernier, Randy Moss. Terrific, astounding, love those guys. More of that. And I'm not saying there's not a place for any of the other auxiliary stuff that goes on, because some of the things that draw these people to racetracks are part of the event. And I'm not immune to that. That's fine. I'm concerned with growing the game, and I don't think putting the event first and the horses second does that.
Yep. We are up to number 46 now. If and when a horse breaks down, we will be honest, forthright, and not hold back details. You know what, Andrew? Horses are going to break down. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. There is no way, nothing, no set of safety rules, no synthetic racetracks, no change in courses, no change in whip rules or medication rules or any of that will stop the fact that a horse will break down from time to time. But the key is not the real key is how do we respond to it? How do we take care of it? How do we inform, educate, and make sure that it does not happen, that it happens at the least as possible, and that it doesn't happen again and again and again?
Horses are anatomically imperfect creatures, and the amount of times you see the word colic pop up is proof positive of that. From an aerodynamic standpoint, though, you have times in a race where a horse is running all out, 1,000-pound animal, on legs, charitably speaking, the width of a solid table leg. And they're putting all 1,000 pounds of their weight, at times, on one leg. Stuff's going to happen. And the more we can educate the public as far as, okay, here's what happened, here's how the horse is doing, here's what we did to try to help, here are our procedures. Some of it goes to transparency. Some of it goes to good crisis communications. To give you an idea, there was an incident a couple of weeks ago where a graded stakes winner trained by Todd Pletcher named Prince Lucky was pulled up in a graded stakes race. Hours later, do you know how much information was readily available? It wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that we need to avoid. I'm not saying that we need to put out a 20-page report as far as all this stuff is concerned, but the more that we can do as a rule to notify people of what's going on, if nothing else than out of respect for what happened and out of respect for the fact that these people are going to be curious as far as what's going on, I think that's the smart play. And I don't know anybody that has run some sort of enterprise like this who hid something to where it wound up being a good decision.
Yeah, and there are some times, like, and I see sometimes TVG does a really good job of this. Some tracks do a really good job of giving you the information anytime like a jockey or a horse goes down.
Yes.
A lot of times we'll see the reporters, like, it's just another thing that's not difficult to be uniform. This should just be like step one for everywhere. Like everywhere, everyone should be, okay, things that we need to find out to get the information out to the people. Is a jockey okay? What's the status on the jockey? Do we have any status on the horse, whether this be positive or negative? 2, don't give us any, conjecture. We don't really care about your thoughts at the moment. It's more of like, give me the facts, spit out the facts quickly, and then get the correct information out, get it out to us quickly. We want to know how the horse, we want to know how the jock's doing. Like, those are the things that we need to know. And I do think, it's one of those things, like I said, it should just be boom. It should just be the reaction at all places. And I will say that TVG does it, especially when they're like live covering the races somewhere, or it's like a big day, or if there's a big day at most tracks. But it, like, we can't have what happened on like the Breeders' Cup, where we're not still, like, there was a Mongolian, grooming stand. We're still not sure what's going on afterwards. And then things happen a little bit after, and we could probably spend an entire podcast discussing that one incident alone. But this just kind of goes back to our whole like transparency thing. And this is really what it all comes down to, because it's going to be inevitable. There are going to be some bad days. There are going to be tough days for every owner, trainer, jockey, like all of us as fans of the sport. Nobody wants to see that happen ever. Like that's the thing that frustrates me with Pete. It's like, nobody wants this to happen. Nobody wants anything bad to happen. I just don't understand why like a group like PETA has to be kind of so really clueless to like how they attack. We look to number 47. If there are problems with breakdowns, we'll find solutions, not scapegoats. Exactly, Andrew. Because why? Because there are going to be problems. That's why. We can't say, well, if this does happen, it's like you said, when. It's when it happens.
Yeah. And going back a little bit here, to a certain degree, live TV is live TV, and there's going to be certain things that are going on. And I understand that I might be a little bit biased on this because he's a good friend of mine. Scott Hazelton's one of the best in the business at finding stuff out after a major situation happened. When California Chrome came home in the Belmont and it turned out that he was a little bit off, he was the first person, or one of the first, to report that he wound up grabbing a quarter at some point during the race. There are reporters out there, and a lot of them working for a place we used to work for, that have a lot of good people that are working there that do really good work with that sort of thing. It just needs to be the uniform standard and not something that we say, oh, hey, that was a really good thing. That should be the standard. And I know there are some people that are working very hard to try to make it the standard. Now, with regard to the solutions, not scapegoats thing, that goes back to the hill at Santa Anita. There were a couple of horses, one in particular, I'm not going to name, you can do the research if you want. They would have broken down on anything. And for the hill to get blamed as a result of that, that's just wrong. It's a case where we can't afford to take the lazy way out. And you had mentioned talking about PETA marketing stuff as people wanting horses to die and whatnot and thinking that was clueless. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on the clueless part. They're marketing to people who are going to agree with them.
Yeah, no.
And they're agreeing with them because that's the image that horse racing sometimes puts out there, whether it wants to or not. Yeah. They're looking for the lowest common denominator, unfortunately, and it's up to the sport to be able to say, no, we're not doing this. Here's what we're doing. And going back to something else we talked about, that's why the counter protesters are necessary and why Team O'Neill should be credited for doing the job that they're doing with regard to saying, no, here's what's going on. Let's at least paint a complete picture here. And that's something that's necessary. And that's something that I felt the need to point out.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into like any politics, but
right.
At all. I never do. But what's scary is like the last, 5-6 years or so, it's like, it's happened because in the political culture, things have become so like one way or the other way. And this is kind of like creeped into everything. And we just so very rarely will sit down. Cause like, I'm reading this all through 50 with you. I've had some where we've kind of had different thoughts or philosophies on all of them, but there's so few times where people can just kind of sit down and have like an educated decision. Whenever you see people like battle on Twitter, and it always ends up in kind of a fight. And what's funny is, even just like 10 years ago was when I started working at TVG. And a lot of the people who I would interact with the most are people that at the very beginning were kind of talking trash to me, and then we would kind of feel each other out. You hear one side, you hear the other side, and you end up going, oh, you know what? I didn't really know that, or I wasn't really. There's just not enough of that in the world, period, right now, in like in our culture. Enough of like two people discussing, having an educated discussion, say, you know what? I still kind of am on my side, but I can see why you are there, and just respecting one another. There's just not a whole lot of that out there right now.
No, there really isn't. And that's a bigger problem than just this. And we could have another podcast talking about people's inability to meet in the middle on any number of situations. But it's a situation where we all want what's best for the horse. And in my case, I have dealt with a number of people, including at least one really good friend of mine who said, look, I read this. A lot of this came across as overly idealistic, but points X, Y, and Z you freaking nailed. And that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need people to read this and be in lockstep with everything I'm talking about. All I'm looking to point out is the fact that there's a lot horse racing could be doing better without a ton of legwork being put into it. And we're at a time where the runway for implementing some of this stuff, I'm not saying it's short. I'm not saying it's perilous, but I can see the end of it from here.
It's running out of time. We're running out of time. I mean, every state that the sports betting, and their takeout's low and there's more options and it's more fun, and every negative story that gets out there that turns off a few other people from horse racing, there needs to be kind of a shot in the arm to help it. We always joked and people talked about how, a Triple Crown winner was going to save the sport. And then there were some IRS kind of tax rules that did give the handle a little bit of a boost, both kind of coming off of 2017, after the second Triple Crown winner that we had in a short period of time. But there's a lot of little things that can, even if they don't, and we have a few more. So like number 48, we will effectively police ourselves so that government officials and lobbyists in their ears have as little reason as possible to attack the business. Completely agree. There's no reason why we can't be policing ourselves in a more honest way. Even where horse racing's at right now, before we hit your last two, even if we're not grabbing a bunch of new fans, even if we're able to turn some of the fans that have left, that have been, the ones that do have that bad taste in their mouth, that have been turned off by, something they felt was dishonest or the lack of transparency. If we can show and just gain back some of the old fans, horse racing would be in great shape. Like, we don't need to go out and get millions and millions and millions of new people. And I think this is kind of what you were even striving with the Barstool thing, because, like Barstool like has their shtick, and I understand that everybody has a character to play. I don't mind, like, I don't agree with a lot of things that they do and say, but I don't mind a lot of their shtick. It's like, it's very frat boy and things like that. And some things they put out are funny, this or that. You can agree with it or not agree with it. They do get a lot of clicks. They do get a lot of people that watch their videos and listen and look at their things. But I think what you're trying to say is, like, we don't even need a brand new fan base to be marketing to. We just have to do some of these things and bring back some of the people who we've turned off.
I am the guy who came up with Gimmick Andrew, which is the guy that a lot of people saw on Twitter, got turned off by because I dropped 128 winners in a single Saratoga meet, about as often as Al Bundy from Married with Children dropped 4 touchdowns in a single game. I have no problem with shtick. The problem is shtick doesn't sell long term.
No.
And Bradley Weisbord said something about looking at the metrics. In my experience, I've seen some of the metrics he's talking about. Not all of them, but some. And a lot of what I'm seeing is when people like that get involved, there's a short-term boost, and that's great. Those people don't come back. We need people that will come back.
Let's get to the final few here. 49, we will foster environments with healthy debate, constructive criticism, hearty competition, are welcomed and encouraged. This is actually, we were talking about this before we even got to 49.
A couple of times, yeah.
Yeah. Racing is above all a pari-mutuel game where bettors compete with one another for money in the pools. It's even a little bit different than, just playing against the house. It's not like it's a different kind of situation than some of the other wagering. So we got to keep that in mind. And yeah, like, there's some of the people that I battled with and back and forth are some of the people that I respect their opinion the most, and I understand that I learn and I can kind of take different things from them that, you know, probably something that I would have never thought about. It's just a different kind of mindset. And as we finish with 50, will not foster environments where for those who degrade certain parts of the population can spread their beliefs to others, nor ones where those opinions are valued more of those than people who have spent years in the business. And I think this is kind of what you were saying with most of this and kind of how it started, is that when you're trying to, and it's hard because when horse racing struggle, I get 100% get what Brad's saying too. You know what I mean? Like he loves horse racing and he's saying like, hey, we need to grow. Like this is like maybe we need to get people out here who can move the needle a little bit, because this has been one discussion that's been like a topic for a while in horse racing. Hey, can we get like a big celebrity owner? You know, can we get some big celebrity owners out there? Can that change things? Or can we get some big celebrities who are like talking horse racing, you know, on a day-to-day, on a mainstream basis? I think that doesn't hurt, right? But how much help are we talking? Like how many people are oh, you look, you know, that's Shaq or Justin Timber. You know, I mean, I'm just throwing names out there. Like, unless it's something where, you know, they're like constantly promoting it, they're constantly talking about it, they're constantly, even when you show up for a day here and there, like you said, like how much is the needle being moved with like a celebrity or something like that? To me, I think you gotta just try to treat your fan base, the niche that you've carved out, the little piece of the pie that you have. I think in any sport, I mean, and we talk a lot about wrestling. You know, you and I are big wrestling fans, and I'm kind of finding this a lot with wrestling too. There's always a lot of like comparisons that I have with wrestling and with horse racing, mainly because they're niche sports who have had their times, you know, throughout the years where they've been very, very popular and like at extreme heights, and then have kind of gone up and down. And you see a lot of people that are faithful that will kind of stick through, you know, watching wrestling and playing the races. But when things, we don't want to feel like we're stupid, like the people that we're being treated like we're stupid. And that happens, I think, a little too often. It's happening a lot in wrestling right now. Like there just seems like there's not a lot of consistency, especially in WWE. But it seems like it's happened a lot in racing in the last 10 years. It's like, hey, we're your fans. We've been here a long time. We are going to put our money in. Most of us, even when we lose and we say we're never going to bet another race again, we're never going to come back. You know, how many of us are on Twitter? I'm done. I'm never playing again. And 2 hours later, we're playing Los Al. And like we're the people that you have to kind of keep happy, because we're going to keep feeding you. And so if you don't do your own fans right, how are you going to do new fans right?
I'm going to paraphrase a friend of mine that works in the game. I think you know him too. Racing does a really bad job of marketing to its fan base that actually exists, and does a great job of marketing to a fan base that isn't going to exist consistently.
100%.
You mentioned the celebrity owner thing. I think we saw a perfect example of that with Gronkowski. When the owners of Gronkowski realized they had a horse with talent, they brought him to America, brought him to Belmont. Horse runs second. Gronk gets associated with the horse. How many people who went, oh, that's interesting, are still horse racing fans? You'd need to go around and ask, but gut instinct tells me not a whole heck of a lot. And that's that way for a lot of reasons. Gronkowski hasn't run here in a while, whatever. But you saw that a little bit. Jim Rome with shared belief, that was great short term. Jim Rome was a passionate owner. He did a lot for horse racing with shared belief, with misdirection, a couple of other horses that he had that looked pretty impressive. How many people got drawn into horse racing because Jim Rome that are still here?
Yeah, and it's not a
very
bad,
interested to find,
and it's
that
not
out.
bad, right? It's not bad when the celebrities come in. It's not going to do anything negative unless it's necessarily like a group that's saying negative things or, you know, talking negative about women or this or that. You know what I mean? Like if it's a person or a personality or, you know, a group or whatever it is that's just starting to talk horse racing, you know, on more of a mainstream basis, that's fine. That's great. But I think we've seen, as you said, like how much is it affecting the betting, which is what it all comes down to, right? At the end, this is a betting game. So Yeah, this was awesome. When I read this and I saw a lot of the buzz and a lot of the feedback, I figured this would be something great we'd have to do as a podcast because, like anything, we're not going to all agree on all these 50. Some of you that are listening are going to disagree with a lot of them. But what I liked about this, Andrew, is that this was something that you put together quickly, but this is something that you've obviously been working on in the back of your head or on little notepads or sheets with like all these different things every time that an issue has been raised throughout your life watching and covering horse racing.
I think we all have, Gino. I think it's a situation where each and every one of us out there, regardless of your opinion on anything that I wrote or anything that we said, there's been a situation where you've said the magic words in any industry, there has to be a better way to do this. That's been what sparked all innovation anywhere. Those words right there. And if there's anything that anybody takes out of this, whatever talking point it is, whatever spirit those talking points were made in, I think that's great. And if any of this somehow winds up trickling up to the top level and winds up creating some sort of meaningful change that keeps the game relevant long after we're gone, then I've done my job. And that's something that I'm always going to be really proud of. I know there are people in high places that have read this. To those that did, thank you. To those that didn't, it's still up on my website. It's pretty easy to find if you just search for andrewchampagne.com. And the title of the piece is A 50-Point Plan for Horse Racing's Future. I should probably thank Bradley Weisbord for giving me the impetus to be able to put all this down. Full disclosure, I have never met Bradley Weisbord. None of this is meant in a personal, confrontational standpoint.
Yeah. And he loves racing.
But it's a situation where I think we have very different views, and that's fine. Differences are what makes racing racing. If we all agreed on everything on a horse racing card, all the winners would be 1-9, right?
Yep.
So it's been interesting seeing a lot of the people that have reached out to me about this, whether they be fans, people within the game, trainers, owners, what have you, bloodstock agents. It's been really cool. I mean, above all else, it reminds me I can still write, which is always welcome. And it reflects the fact that there's a lot of really passionate people about that game. And as long as there are passionate people in horse racing that want the game to survive, I like its chances.
Yeah, and we'll kind of end with this. What I loved about the conversation that you were having with Brad and how this all sparked, and any of these 50 things, if we tried 1, 2, 3, 4, or all 50, the key to me is it's trying. We're at the point now with racing where we just can't sit and do nothing. If you try something and it doesn't work, hey, that's fine. At least you tried. But if you just sit and do nothing, we're just going to continue to get whittled and whittled and whittled away until there's not a whole heck of a lot left. And if you try, that's the only way. And we're not even talking radical things. We're just talking smart, logical, common sense things here to make some improvements, to make the people that are investing in your game feel a little bit better. If you don't try some of these things, if you don't try, even if they're not these things, hey, maybe somebody else has another list of 100 things that they think. And as long as they're positive for the horses and for the bettors and for the customers, and hey, you know what? If we bring in celebrity owners and they bring up a ton of money and they are good for racing, then I'm sure you and I would be the first people to say, you know what? We were dead wrong on that. We were dead wrong. Hey, they brought
I'd be happy to be wrong.
Me too.
I really genuinely would.
100%.
And there are some celebrity owners that undoubtedly have been good for racing. It's just a matter of seeing if we can leverage that interest long term beyond a couple of big days. How do we get the people that tuned in on a Saturday for Kentucky Derby Day to play on Sunday with a mandatory payout?
Yep. And that will be another article, think piece that you write as we continue to add to our little post-it list of ways that we can hopefully improve horse racing and fix it. And now we're not, I guess I'm older than you now. I was going to say, I'm not someone who's trying to say it has to be done this way, not someone who's trying to be stubborn about anything at all. And what I love is you gave so many different opportunities and different ways to change things, different ways to improve things. We just all agree that things need to be changed. Effort needs to be made. Attempts need to be made. There are a ton of really good, really smart, really hardworking people in horse racing. Man, from the owners who have earned the money and to spend on the horses, to the trainers who are in the jockeys and the valets and the grooms and the hot walkers who are getting up every day, and I'm not going to act like what we do is digging ditches, but when you dig into a card or a weekend when there's some good races and you spend hours and hours and hours handicapping the races, and then you prep and you get up early and you do, like, it's not, horse racing is not filled with lazy people. There are a ton of hardworking people. I just think we all kind of together just need a collective nudge and point in the right direction. We might be a little idealistic in thinking about it, but that's why you highlighted all the specifics and saying, hey, you know what? Here are some of the ways that we can do this. This was awesome, Andrew. I really appreciate it, man. We spent almost an hour and a half now going through this, and I know that there's going to be some people out there that really appreciate all the time and effort you put into this.
Gino, you know who else didn't change when they had to? Professional wrestling promoters in the mid-1980s when Vince McMahon was buying up everything in sight. Sports betting is Vince McMahon. We need to adapt or die. How's that for an ending?
I love it. Awesome. And now I can stop and go watch Monday Night Raw. So yeah,
you're welcome.
I think we'll have this out probably in a day or two. So Andrew, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it. And next time we talk, it'll be more handicapping like we usually. But I thought this was too good of an opportunity to pass up. So thanks again, buddy.
Dude, this was magic. It's the least I can do. This is a lot of fun. If you need something like this again, let me know. I'd be interested to see what kind of traffic you get.
Let's get the plugs for you too. Where can we find you on the website, and give us a plug for your YouTube channel also?
Sure. Twitter is at Andrew Champagne. Website is andrewchampagne.com. Got a YouTube channel. Just search Andrew Champagne. That'll pop up. Thing I'm most excited about of late is the fact that I've started a sports betting play of the day on my website. There'll be some horse racing stuff on there as well. But after I had a really good year picking NFL games, I thought, gee, let's see how long I can keep this going. I've started off 4-1 in the new year. So hopefully that continues, and hopefully I can make some people some money.
Keep the train a-rolling. Andrew Champagne, my friend, you have a great night, and I'll talk to you again real soon.
Take it easy, Gene. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, guys, we'll be back in just a second here on That's What G Said. Big thanks to Andrew Champagne. We spent a lot of time. There's some rambling. Obviously, I ramble a lot when we get through ideas, and they're, we're just two buddies kind of talking and hoping for the best for the future of horse racing. Before we close things out with the horse racing plays, I want to let you know about one of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast, CindyCarava.com. If you want to send her an email, cindyc.realtor@gmail.com. We all know moving is stressful. It's one of the most difficult events in life, the relocating. There's so many factors that are going into that you have to worry about, you're probably not even thinking about. That's why you need to find someone who you can let take care of all that for you, and that is Cindy Carava. I've known her for over a decade. She is one of the most honest and genuine people you will ever meet. She can help you out in so many different ways: selling, purchasing, leasing. She can connect you with vendors. Maybe you're just trying to get a little home improvement for your house. Handymen, painters, landscapers that she's used in her own homes. Maybe you need help getting pre-approved for a loan. She can connect you to the lenders that she's worked with. She covers all parts of the San Gabriel Valley, North San Diego County, Del Mar, Solana Beach, Rancho Santa Fe. Maybe you're just curious to see how much your home is worth. She'll do a free market analysis of the home's value. You can find her on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. You can find reviews about her on Yelp and on Zillow. But CindyCarava.com is the home base where you can find all the contact information. That's Carava. Make sure you let her know that Gino sent you. Close things out with some horse racing. First, we'll talk a little Thursday at Gulfstream Park. Then we'll talk some Friday at Sam Houston. So get your January 9th past performances out for Gulfstream Park. Race number 1. Let's go right to the opener. And we're going to go to the number 4, All Power. I think this horse should be like 6-5. So to me, if you're playing an early pick 5, this is the exotic single right off the bat. In his debut, he completely missed the break. He moved up in between horses and then down to the rail. He was up onto the heels of the leader. He checked. He had nowhere to go. He was tucked in. He was waiting for room. And then he looked like he had room down on the rail, and he tried to go inside. He got completely shut off. He lost all momentum. He lost a few lengths. Then he tried to angle around, but it was just too late. All Power now gets the chance to cut back from 6.5 furlongs to 6. Should be the speed in here. There's not a ton of other pace signed on. I think he's the one to catch and the one to beat. Let's single the number 4, All Power, to kick things off in the opener at Gulfstream Park. Race number 2, the number 3, Jealous Boyfriend. I think this is a good horse to take a little bit of a flyer on if you get around 10-1 on him. His debut, he just really showed nothing. It was a slow start, but then he got squeezed back out of a tight spot, and he never got into it. But he faced a pretty nice horse, and if you'll notice, the favorite in this race is Cross Court. Cross Court was in that very debut race that Jealous Boyfriend was in, and Jealous Boyfriend was beaten, 28 lengths. He just started to back up late. But Cross Court was beaten 11 lengths. He was actually favored that day. He lost to a nice horse, and he was clear-cut second, but he was well beaten. I think there's plenty of room for upside here with Jealous Boyfriend. Irad jumps on. It's a small field where the heavy favorite was well beaten. There's a few first-time starters. Let's take a little flyer on Jealous Boyfriend here at 10-1. I wouldn't necessarily call him like a single, but if you're putting together a pick 5, throw him in your pick 5 and maybe play a few bucks to win on him if we get double-digit odds. Let's go to race number 4 at Gulfstream Park. Here's another one who is kind of I think is a little bit sneaky. Flozano, the 8, whose debut was against Better, and he wheels back. He debuted on December the 22nd, and now he's back on January the 9th. What I liked is that he showed some speed. Showed some speed in between horses versus Better. She got shuffled back, and she just couldn't re-rally. That same speed versus this group would have her in a nice striking spot, probably right behind the early leaders. And now Paco jumps on for a barn he has been very successful with. I like Flozano. I'll make a win wager if we get anything around half of that morning line. At 6-1 or over, we'll bet to win. And make sure to throw the 8 Flozano in all of your exotics. Gulfstream Park, let's go to race number 5. Let's go to the 9, Up'em. Blinkers come off for this one who's making his first start of 2019. He's had just 2020. He's had 2 months off now. But he's been his own worst enemy at the start. And I think the blinkers coming off will be key for him. He's just been a little bit too keyed up at the start, if you notice. He was pushed in at the start. He was bumped at the start. He was bumped. He was brushed at the gate. So I'm thinking blinkers off, relax a little bit. You're not so keyed up to go. Now he's fresh. He drops in class a little bit. I like Up'em, the number 9. In race number 5, keep an eye on the 2 also, who's a first-time gelding just in the nick of time. I would use those 2 in your exotics, but if we get 5-1, let's make a win wager on the number 9, Up'em. And let's go to race number 9 for our next Gulfstream Park play. We're going to go to the number 4, Secure Connection. He hasn't raced since September when he won Maiden Special Weight at Delaware. But to me, it's the races prior to that I actually liked even more. If you go back, his June 20th race in his career debut, she was behind a horse named Classy Sadie, who tried Stakes Company next time out. Then on July the 26th at Laurel, there were a couple next out winners that day. Bella Aurora is now a stakes winner. On August the 29th at Colonial, hooked a horse named Love Beach, who was third next out against Stakes Company. And then Secure Connection won last time out. Had to take back to mid-pack, 7th, was about 5 lengths off, was settling in between horses, asked for run, responded nicely, moved in between, angled around, and ran down a loose on the lead arrival, 5-1-1, who ended up finishing second, but that horse was tough to run down with lone speed. First time Lasix today. This one should be a little closer early. Going the mile in a 16 doesn't have to be as far out of it, and we've actually seen that she has a little bit of speed if she wants to show it. That's the number 4, Secure Connection. We'll make a win wager on the number 4 if we can get anything around 7-2. And then the final play of the day on January 9th at Gulfstream will be in the 10th at the number 5, Free the Beast. Free the Beast was a debut maiden claimer winner, and then on October the 30th stepped up and faced winners, and actually was pretty good that day. Tracked nicely early, took back, was like 6th, 7th, was about 7 lengths off, angled to the outside and got into a really nice stride late, but couldn't catch the loose on the lead Miss Headley. And then on November the 30th, Free the Beast tried a really tough group on the dirt, in which the winner Spanish Point came back to finish third behind the runner-up Sound Machine in the Glitter Women's Stakes next out. If you just toss that dirt try, Free the Beast looks really, really good in here. I'd be surprised if he's that high of I keep saying that, keep confusing the Colts and the Phillies here. Free the Beast, she will be really tough at anything around 4-1. We'll make a win wager on Free the Beast. So our plays from Gulfstream Park, race number 1, the number 4, All Power, exotic single. I think this horse should be like close to odds on. Second race, the number 3, Jealous Boyfriend. Toss into your exotics. Make a play if we get around 10 to 1. Fourth race, the number 8, Flozano. Sneaky around 6 to 1. Throw into some of your exotics. The fifth race, the number 9, Upham. Make sure to use along with the 2, but we'll bet the 9 if we can get 5 to 1. In the ninth race, the number 4, Secure Connection. We'll make a win wager at 7 to 2. And in the 10th race, the number 5, Free the Beast. We'll make a win wager if we can get around 4 to 1. Get your Sam Houston out for January the 10th. Hey, I'm really pumped about Sam Houston. One of the reasons why I'm going to play Sam Houston, I'm going to always give the tracks that do what we ask as customers, right? Less takeout, lower takeout. We get a little bit more of our money back. And Sam Houston's doing that. They have a turf course over there. I like where they're located because they get horses coming in from all over the place, right? Those are the kind of racetracks that I really like because they're harder. They make it more difficult to handicap. I feel like if we spend some time on them, then we'll have an advantage over the people that don't spend the time handicapping those races. So let's get the Sam Houston, get your PPs out for the 10th. Let's go to the second race at Sam Houston. The low takeout, or in particular, pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s. The win, play, show takeout is very, very good too. So those will be a lot of the wagers that I'll be focusing in on. And we're going to go to the number 8. And that's Towering Oak. I just think he was outrun a little bit and overmatched last out. He did run in spots, finishing 5th in that field of 11. He was well beaten over at Remington Park. He was 3 deep into the turn. I just think he's going to be much better of a fit at this level where he's able to sit a little bit closer. He has some tactical speed. He has the ability to show speed or come from off the pace if need be. The 4th place finisher in the race that he comes out of last time out, won next out against Oklahoma Bred in a 5,000 allowance. I think Towering Oak, if we get 7 to 2, we'll make a win wager on the 8, Towering Oak. Let's go to race number 3. Let's talk about the number 4, Cleverly, who was your favorite when she debuted at Remington Park, and she broke well from the outside. She was a close-up 4th. She was within a couple lengths, but then she faded. She got bet a lot that day, which is not surprising because a lot of Steve Asmussen first-time starters get bet. Then last out, she went down to her nose at the start. She moved through in between horses. She was up close. She was within 2 on the inside. I just feel like there's a lot more to this filly than we've seen. I think the change of scenery will do her well. Sometimes you just need to move, change the track, mix it up a little bit. Let's go with the number 4, Cleverly, and we'll make a win wager on this one if we can get anything around 4. Race number 4, let's go to the number 2, Startling. Also, if you're not following Carl Broberg on Twitter, on social media, he's a great follow. He's really funny, really honest. So give Carl Broberg a follow on there. I'll try to get him on some big horses running coming up. Startling, what I like in a restricted claiming race like this is I like to look for horses that have the upside and that are lightly raced, and that is Startling in here. In his most recent start at Delta, he broke inward, he bumped, he lost his footing a little bit, and he tracked from 3rd. He was tucked inside. It was an okay effort, and that was against Better. That was going 5 furlongs. He's going to make his 3rd start now off the long layoff. He did not race between November 24th of 2018 and December 6th of 2019. So this race coming up, and the drop in class, with Brober kind of trying to figure out where he belongs, trying to find his right level, I think he's going to be set for an absolute best effort that we've seen from him. So I'm expecting a big one from Startling. We'll make a win wager if we can get anything around half of that morning line price of 4 to 1. Startling, race number 4 at Sam Houston. Let's go to race number 6 at Sam Houston. The number 4, Decorated for Gold, I think is really well spotted coming in from Turf Paradise. The last effort, it wasn't that great, just kind of ran around in a circle, didn't show a whole lot, but the 2 and 3 back races on the grass, what I like a lot about this filly is her style. Her running style gives her an opportunity to kind of just be just behind the leader. She's not really speedy, but in this particular race against this particular field, she'll probably be sitting a good trip and get a jump on some of the horses who are going to be coming from way out of it. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Decorated for Gold get a little bit more aggressive in a race where you look around and nobody really scares you in here. She was right behind a horse named Dime for Me last time out, who was a non-2 winner in her next start. Decorated for Gold in race number 6 at Sam Houston. Let's make a win wager if we can get 7 to 2. Final play of the day will be in race number 9 at Sam Houston. The number 3, Fleeta Bell, who comes in off of a really nice 3rd at Fairgrounds, and that was in a race that had some moisture on the racetrack. She was shuffled back a little bit at the start. She settled 5th. She was inside. She waited. She angled 4 deep. She closed well down the center of the racetrack, and now she's going to go 3rd off the bench. She gets extra distance back to 6.5 where she's been her best. 3rd start off the short break. Felita Bell. We'll make a win wager on this one if we can get anything around 3-1. That's in the 9th race at Sam Houston. So our Sam Houston plays for Friday night. We have race number 2. The number 8, Towering Oak, will play to win at 7-2. The 4, Cleverly, at 4-1 in race 3. We'll play that one to win. In race number 4, Startling, we're looking for around 4-1 on the number 2. In race number 6, Decorated for Gold, we're looking for around 7-2 on that one. And in race number 6, that's the 4. And then in race number 9, the 3, Felita Bell, we're looking for around 3-1. Horse racing plays for Thursday and for Friday. Thanks for listening, folks. Appreciate you downloading, you subscribing. And if you can, head on over to iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud. Hit that subscribe button. It's a big help for us. Doesn't cost you anything, and it helps boost us up with our advertisers and puts a few extra bucks in our pocket. So thanks for always listening, and if you can leave a nice 5-star rating on review on iTunes, that would be a big help also. Joey, my friend, close us out.